Senate Tax Committee. Today is Tuesday, April 26th. Members, we have a full agenda today. This is our second day of what's known as LOST, local option sales taxes. And we have 14 local option sales tax requests on our agenda today. I will call the quorum when it gets here. We're going to start our presentations today, but before we do, I'm going to have Ms. Pollock give us just the background on some of the basics, the local option sales tax basics, and how these will be evaluated as we move forward. So, Ms. Pollock, if you could give us once again that review of local option sales taxes.
Madam Chair and members, the authorization and enactment requirements for local sales taxes are governed under general law in Minnesota statutes. Local sales taxes apply to the same tax base as the state sales tax base and are administered by the Department of Revenue. What we commonly call special taxes are those taxes that apply to things like lodging, food and beverage, or admissions, and not to the general sales tax base. So the requirements I'm going to outline briefly here don't apply to the authorization of special taxes. Local sales tax revenues can only be used for construction and rehabilitation of capital projects that have a clear and demonstrated regional benefit beyond the local jurisdiction. And the proceeds of the tax must be dedicated exclusively to the payment of the construction and rehabilitation costs and associated bonding costs. The 2021 Omnibus Tax Bill codified the definition of a capital project for local sales tax proposals, which means a single building or structure associated including associated infrastructure needed to safely access or use the building or structure, improvements within a single park or named recreation area, or a contiguous trail. And then there are 5 requirements for enacting or modifying a local sales tax. First, the governing body of a local jurisdiction must pass a resolution prior to seeking legislative authority that includes the proposed tax rate, a detailed description of no more than 5 capital projects that would be funded by the proposed tax, documentation of the regional significance of each project, including the share of the benefit of each project by persons outside of the local jurisdiction, the amount of revenue from the sales tax that would be used for each project and the estimated time needed to raise that amount, and the total revenue that would be raised for all projects before the tax expired, and the estimated total length of time that the tax would be in effect if all projects are funded. Second, the jurisdiction must submit the resolution to the chairs and ranking members of the House and Senate tax committees by January 31st of the year of the proposed authorization. The submission must include that underlying documentation showing how the regional benefit, including the share of the economic benefit to persons residing or businesses located outside of the jurisdiction was determined. Third, the local jurisdiction must receive legislative approval to impose the tax. The authorizing legislation must include the tax rate, the specific projects, the total revenue that would be raised from the tax, and the estimated length of time the tax will be in effect. Fourth, the local jurisdiction must conduct a referendum within 2 years after receiving legislative approval. If there are more than one authorized project, there must be a separate question on the ballot for each project. And if not all projects are approved, the total revenue to be raised from the tax and the duration must be reduced proportionately. And then finally, the local jurisdiction must file the resolution and the documentation of voter approval with the Secretary of State, which must occur before the first day of the next regular legislative session. Madam Chair, that concludes the summary.
Thank you, Ms. Pollock. Ms. Pollock, before we start with our first testifier, which will be Senator Utke, by the way, I just wanted to note, have all of the submission requirements been met for the 14 projects we will be hearing today?
Madam Chair, yes, generally all of the requirements have been met.
Thank you. All right, members, our first bill is Senator Utke's bill, Senate File 3845. Senator Utke, welcome to the Tax Committee. And Senator Weber, would you move Senate File 3845, please?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Weber. Senator Aitkin, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Good morning. The bill we've got before you this morning comes from Lake of the Woods County, and it's a lodging tax authorization. Now, this isn't a new tax for the county, but they are changing the jurisdiction, you could say. It was countywide prior. With this bill, the Board of Commissioners from the county would now be in charge of this, and it would be countywide except for the city of Baudette. So that is the reason for this bill today. It's a 3% lodging tax that goes to promote. They just have a small place up there to promote called the Lake of the Woods and everything related to Rainy Lake and that fishery. So with that, they've got a pretty important job here with the lodging tax and how they sell their story and get people up there to visit with them. And with that, Madam Chair, I've got a couple testifiers that have come all the way down from Baudette that would like to further tell us about what they would be doing with this. Now it would be just county run, headed up by the Board of Commissioners, as I said. And so with me, to my left, I've got Commissioner Ed Arneson, and to my right, Joe Henry, who is the Executive Director of the Lake of the Woods Tourism. And I don't know, which one is, Ed, are you gonna start this off? And then the chair can call on whoever is gonna go first. Okay.
Thank you, Senator
commissioner, please.
Utke. We'll call on Commissioner Arneson then first. Welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record, please. You may
Thank you. Edward Arneson, Lake of the Woods County Commissioner. I have the honor to help the most northern part of the state. Northwest Angle is part of my district, and northwestern Lake of the Woods. I've served this position 22 years now, and the reason we're here to get permission to impose this tax is being all the way up in Lake of the Woods, marketing is such an important part of our industry, and we've had a successful, I believe our tourism board we've had for 32 years. I was one of the founding members on that board, and we just want to keep continuing it. It's been very successful. Our executive director, Joe Henry, has done a marvelous job, and so we would just like to continue. It's our major industry in Lake of the Woods County, tourism. Last year, I was at a DNR meeting, and there was an estimate of 2,700,000 angling hours on Lake of the Woods. Our winter fishery, I think we're one of the smallest counties in population, but we'll actually have days where we'll have more people on the lake fishing than we have living in the county. Our family has been we're celebrating our 125th year in the fishing business. We were commercial fishermen, transitioned into the resort business, and we have, Joe, is it 62
61.
huh?
61.
61 members that pay into the lodging bureau, and I can't say how important this bill is for our community and the citizens of Minnesota too. So with that, I'll let Joe take over unless there's any questions for me.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, Joe Henry, Executive Director, Lake of the Woods Tourism. Welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Joe Henry. I'm the Executive Director of Tourism for Lake of the Woods. And Senator, you know, tourism is our #1 industry up in Lake of the Woods. And from the Twin Cities, it takes about 6 hours to get up there. So it's no small feat to travel up there and to enjoy that area. You know, our lodging tax brings in about $460,000 per year. And that generates an economic impact to our county of over $100 million. We have a very sophisticated marketing mix with, digital, print, television, radio, sports shows. We generate a lot of earned media. Our website's very active. In a 28-day span this winter, just through Facebook alone, we reached over 3.5 million people. We put out a newsletter every single week. We reached hundreds of thousands of people on a weekly basis. And we believe that's very important to keep our businesses, healthy. But, we also take a look at a tourism bureau as an insurance policy. It's an insurance policy against $5 gas, consumer confidence waning, inflation, potential international conflicts. There's also something called the halo effect. In essence, many studies have been done citing that tourism is actually one of the top drivers of economic development. And the reason that is because tourism and the marketing and promotions tourism does creates the image in people's heads of what your area is all about. And that in turn generates people moving to the area, new business, et cetera, et cetera. So we believe tourism within Lake of the Woods County is extremely important. And any kind of support you could give our tourism bureau would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. And I believe you have two additional testifiers, Senator Utke. I see Jim Osted and Jerry Seck. Do they want to, Mr. Seck is not going to testify today?
I think they've covered it.
Okay. Any other testifiers?
I can't see
Senator
on the
Utke.
computers. Mr. Osted joining us via Zoom.
I am Senator Utke.
Oh, okay, he's here.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Osted. Please introduce yourself for the record and continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jim Osted. I'm the Lake of the Woods County Attorney.
Welcome, Mr. Osted. Would you like to continue with your testimony?
The only thing that I would address, Madam Chair, and members of the committee, is that one of the issues with the way the statute is written regarding the lodging tax is that each local government unit, whether it be an unorganized township, a city or a town, any tax collected goes to that particular local government unit. The issue we have here with Lake of the Woods is it's borders on international waters, 2 counties, and as Mr. Henry and Commissioner Arneson testified to, we have a huge population that rents fish houses, sleeper houses. And one of the difficulties has been to making sure we can collect tax when somebody is on the public waters, but there's difficulty in attributing that to any specific township because it doesn't belong to any township. That's one of the reasons that originally we've been discussing this special legislation throughout the process for the last couple of years. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Osted. Senator Utke, do you have some comments? And then I have a couple questions. So maybe, do you have any additional comments?
Madam Chair, I really don't. I think our testifiers did a great job of telling us the story of what they have up there. The one is the gem of what Lake of the Woods County and the lake and everything surrounding it are, but then, the effective job they do with this, with these tourism dollars that they're collecting through this lodging tax. And, we're, with this, we need to keep it in place, and they've had some challenges because of the city. The Baudette at this point does not want to be part of it, and we need to help out the county so that they can continue on and promote that whole area, because it is such a driving force for them and such. So with that, I mean, they've done a great job of telling us what they're going to
Yes.
do. So I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Utke. I just have a very brief question, and I want to understand, is this a new 3% lodging tax for the county except for Baudette, and that's on top of an existing lodging tax? Or
No.
can you kind of explain
No,
the current, is there currently a lodging tax? I thought you said it's not a new lodging tax.
Correct, Madam Chair. They currently have the 3% tax. This says a new tax, but it would be new under these arrangements because the county is now doing the tax, and the city is pulling out of it. So, but as far as the region goes, for all of those that are going to be collecting the tax, and those of us that visit and would pay the tax, it remains the same. It's 3% now, and it would be 3% in the future. It's just getting the you know, in this case, the county now is fully in control rather than the county and the city with the lodging tax.
Yes, that is what my understanding was too from our earlier discussion. But I think I'm gonna have Ms. Pollock just look at line 1.12, or look and just, if you could, speak to that, Ms. Pollock, in that it says that this provision must not exceed 6%, and so the current tax is 3%. We just need some clarification of, why is it underlined as new law then that there be a 3% tax as a, and excluding Baudette, but then that not to exceed 6%? I think there might be some confusion. I just want you to clear that up, please.
Madam Chair, sure, I can attempt to do that, and the county attorney may have to assist me a little bit here. Under general law, so the section 469.190 that's listed in the bill here, under that authority, cities or towns or counties may, without legislative authorization, enact a lodging tax of up to 3%. And the 95% of the revenues of that tax has to go to tourism promotion and so forth, which this bill also speaks to. When a local jurisdiction is seeking to enact a lodging tax that would be in excess of that 3% that's allowed to be enacted without legislative approval, they would have to seek legislative approval to enact anything more than that. And so the language that says the total tax imposed under 469.190, and this provision must not exceed 6%. I think that's to ensure that, you know, that the generally authorized tax and this, that would put a cap on that total authorization. And, you know, this bill authorizes the 3% in addition to general law, but of course, would not have to impose it, would just have the authorization.
Okay, thank you. That's an important clarification, because the language is a little confusing as written, so that makes sense. So this is just, well, it's clearly a not authorizing, which they could do locally if they chose to.
Right,
But up to 6%.
and Madam Chair,
Okay. Mr. Senator Aitkin.
on line 1.82, that's, or 1.8 also, I guess, by ordinance, a tax of up to 3%. So there it does spell out the 3% for what they're currently looking at. But I do see, you go to 1.12 and it brings up the 6%. You've got, there's two different numbers in there, but currently it's a 3% max.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Aitkin. Members, any further questions? Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a brief question, Senator Utke, for either of your testifiers. You mentioned a 6-hour drive from the Twin Cities to your community, and first of all, that's really impressive that you guys came all the way down here to speak on behalf of that bill. That's really something. I was just wondering, with a drive like that, you know, that's not like going to Duluth on Friday night and coming back Sunday morning. Are people usually staying for a pretty lengthy amount of time when they come?
I can address that.
Commissioner.
Common stays are at least 3 nights, especially in the wintertime, that we do a lot of 3-night, 2-day fishing trips. Week-longs are common. Some will, there are overachievers in the fishing. They'll do it in 2 days and 2 nights, but generally a 3-night, 2-day stay is very common.
Thank you, Senator Coleman. Thank you very much for the good testimony. I don't see any other questions. We do have a quorum. And then Senator Utke, any closing comments
Well,
further?
just thank you, Madam Chair. I think we've covered everything we need to. The one thing about the drive is coming down is one thing, but when you're looking at doing that 6-hour trip to go up and go after those walleyes, it's just, I mean, that seems like 2 hours. You're just there. So it's a destination we want to go to. But with that, thank you for hearing our bill, and I believe you're going to just lay this one over, right?
Yes, but before you leave, I do see a question I had not. Senator Dietze.
I'm sorry. interrupted your closing, and then I was late, so I apologize for that. And now I'm having technical difficulties, so I'm not on camera. But I just want to confirm, and you might have covered this when, because I came in late, but, so this is already in place, but it's part of a joint powers agreement, and that the basically marketing that you do from this lodging tax can't continue if if Baudette leaves. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Right.
Senator, yes.
Yep. And, no, I just think that's because you're way up there, like Senator Coleman said, you're not, just an hour away. I think it is so important because I think you have been impacted by the tourism where a lot of places up north, I think were able to actually grew. I think Grand Marais area, actually people would escape up there, but you're not as close. And so I think this is important because I do think that, I think it is a big economic impact up there. It's close to Canada. I think people like going there, but you just have to tell people about it. So I do appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much. And thank you for making the trek down here. That always weighs heavily. And Commissioner, I look forward to seeing that school, that school in the northwest angle.
Oh,
I've heard
very
so
good.
much about that. So,
Well, if you need a ride up there, I have a boat, so.
well, now Senator Utke offered before, but we never quite made it. So
Okay.
we'll try and make a trip up there.
I'll give a tour of the northwest angle.
All right. Well, thank you so much. The bill will be laid over.
Thank you.
Members,
you.
our next bill on the agenda is Senate File 3702, Senator Ruud. Senator Coleman, would you move that bill, please, as Senator Ruud comes forward? I know we have a large agenda today. And next on deck is Majority Leader Miller. Senator Miller, you'll be up next. Thank you. Senator Ruud, welcome to the committee.
Thank you,
Introduce
Madam
yourself
Chair.
for the-
and-
Well, you don't know that. So you don't have to introduce yourself for the record, but tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for allowing us this time. We do have our testifiers are up against a funeral this morning, so I really appreciate you and Senator Miller making time for us to go first. Senate File 3702 is the Aitkin County Sales and Use Tax. And Madam Chair, I have the A1 amendment.
Yes, members, do you have the A1 amendment in your packets? That's a delete all?
No, it's not.
It's not a delete all. Okay, let's get the A1 in front of us. Senator Klein. Thank you, Senator Klein. Senator Ruud, to the A1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This just removes a portion of the bill that did not fit within the parameters of the tax committee for the sales and use tax.
Okay, all those, this is an author's amendment. This is your first stop. All those in favor of the A1 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Your bill is amended. To your bill as amended, Senator.
Thank you,
Ruud.
Madam Chair. I think we'll go right to our testifier as their time is limited this morning. Today I have, by Zoom, I have Mike Skirbich. He's the city administrator for Aitkin.
Thank you, Ms. Skirbich. Mr. Skirbich, welcome to the committee. If you could just introduce yourself for the record, please, and continue.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mike Skirbich. I'm the new city administrator in Aitkin. I've been there about 6 months, and I'm on my way to a funeral, so I left my office here a second ago. So I appreciate you taking the opportunity to meet with me early here this morning, because otherwise I couldn't be here, and the mayor's at a medical conference, so we kind of got caught flat-footed. But basically, our local sales tax discussion is pretty straightforward. The city of Aitkin has some financial realities that are very difficult to deal with. Our county taxing capacity is about $33 million. Our current city taxing capacity is about $1.6 million, and we are taxing at 104% of our taxing capacity. And in the last year, we had a 21% levy increase, 14% in 2021, 10% in 2020. And so we're currently taxing at about 104% of our taxing capacity. And then the last couple of years before I came into the city, they spent over $1.2 million in reserves that they had. And the situation is just not sustainable, nor is it tenable at this point. In this coming year, because we're the county seat, In the coming year here, we are having a $60 million expansion on a regional hospital. At that point, we'll have over $200 million worth of non-tax paying, not-for-profit type buildings in our community. And that includes the county and everybody else that goes with it. So we're really struggling to sustain operations. All the people who don't pay taxes still want their road plowed, and they still want the road repaired, and all the things that go with that. So we're blessed to have all these activities in our community, but we are struggling financially because of it. If you look at the entire situation from a regional perspective, we service 12 townships with fire and police and safety protection. Of those, 43% of them are seasonal. So the tax that would get paid wouldn't all get paid by the people in our community. There's a lot of commerce and tourists and seasonal visitors. That's the basis of our economy. In the next 3 weeks here, our traffic on a Friday afternoon will quintuple. So, it's a real strain for the community, and the people who are paying the tax are a small number, and we can't continue to do that. It's just not possible. And as far as the community response goes for the tax, we've had taxpayers come down and say, why don't we have a regional sales? Why don't we have a city sales tax? Other people in our region do. So if you look around us in our region, most of the people are getting 1%. And if we were to get that at this point in time, that would probably equate to about $500,000 annually. And my expectation is that number will be going up because everything's going up. I think a 25 to 30% factors in place for everybody. So we think that we would generate quite a bit of revenue to get the money here. And, since I came in and took over the ship, so to speak, and Mayor Workman too, what we've seen is just huge evidence of financial insolvency just ahead of us. And we're taxing plenty, but we are just supporting too many other people. And one of the biggest problems we have are that our regional parks, we don't have any funding for them. And also our city hall and things like that, we're meeting in the library. We don't have a community meeting center. We don't have a city hall. Our fire and police station that we currently have leaky roofs, which cannot continue because those buildings will end up getting moldy, and we won't even have a place to put our fire and safety people in the current location that they're at. So our desire is to take this money and move forward and consolidate operations for our city services and our public services, build a new building, spend $1 million of this money in our park over a 20-year period. And basically, a lot of outside payers use city services, and this is going to benefit our entire region. So we're kind of in an awkward position. And I know when we first pulled numbers together here, our total was about $10 million. And then we took one small portion out because it was for infrastructure type stuff that didn't qualify. When we first came in front of the House Committee, they said maybe it would qualify, maybe it won't. Instead of arguing it, we took that small section out. But overall, our numbers is pretty valid. I talked to Gary Carlson in the last few days. He did mention that some people are adjusting their number because of inflation and prices in construction. If we were to adjust it 25% or something, we'd be at about $12 million. That's probably pretty realistic because I'm looking at some roof projects right now that I thought one was going to be 300, now it's going to be over 400. So the market is, and with construction costs, we're seeing about a 25 to 30% increase at this point in time. So overall, we're just a regional player that is having difficulty getting things done, and we can't tax anymore. I don't know how we could. And the people in the community are tired of it. And yet we have so many seasonal people in the area. We probably have 25 lakes within maybe a 15-mile radius of where we're at. So we are a regional center for law enforcement. We have the county there. We have our court system there. We have our sheriff's department there. We have our police and fire and safety for everybody. So, we're kind of we're a weird little town. We seem to be healthy because we have a lot of activity, but financially we're really struggling. And so our goal is to take this money and to make it so that we can fix the public buildings that we need and increase our sustainability over time, and not to have to raise taxes any further than we currently have, because quite honestly, they've been very aggressive on the taxing side. So in a nutshell, I would tell you a lot more, but we're limited on time this morning, but I would open the floor to questions from anybody. So if anyone has any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Administrator Serby. You described the project well, and I just have, you answered my one question, which is this of regional significance? And it sounds like you do have a significant amount of, you are a regional center. My question is, what is the new municipal building?
Head south toward Rice Creek Parkway.
I apologize. Go ahead now. I did get your question.
What is the new municipal building that you're seeking taxing local option sales taxes?
We would put fire, police, and city hall all in one building, so that we have a meeting center and can consolidate operations. We're at this point in time, we're in multiple buildings. The city offices are renting a small office from the USDA, and we have no meeting rooms. I don't have a conference room. I don't have a city meeting room. We utilize the library in that capacity, but it's a scheduling difficulty on a regular basis. So people in our community call and say, can I use the community meeting room? And we say, well, we don't have one. And so, we would really just bring the buildings up to where you would expect them. And I don't think that we're looking at any type Taj Mahal thing. We're looking at having buildings that have a roof on them that doesn't leak, and offices that are, very nominal at best. I don't have a need to have some fancy new building for the city, but what we have is in such disrepair. It's outlived its functional life. There's really no point in continuing to chase good money after bad. So that's kind of where we are at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Serby. Any questions for Mr. Serby? I know he needs to go somewhere else, but are there any questions for Mr. Serby? We'll let him continue on then. Thank you so much. And then any further questions for Senator Ruud? Seeing none, the bill will be laid over. Thank you, Senator Ruud. I forgot your closing comments. Did you want any closing comments?
I would just remind the committee that Aitkin is a large county with a population of only 15,000 people. And so for those folks to bear the burden of the whole of that county is really difficult. And I thank our city administrator for his testimony today and your support.
Thank you
Madam
so
Chair.
much, Senator Ruud. As I said, the bill is laid over. Next on the agenda, we have Senator Miller. Welcome to the Tax Committee, former Tax Committee member. And Senator Chamberlain, would you move Senator Miller's bill, Senate File 2833?
I will move Senate File 2833.
Thank you. Winona County imposition of a local sales and use tax authorization. Senator Miller.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair and members. This Senate File 2833 would authorize Winona County to impose a quarter percent sales and use tax to construct a new correctional facility in the city of Winona. And with me today to share more details virtually is the chairwoman of the Winona County Board, Chris Meyer.
Thank you, Senator Miller. Chair Meyer, welcome to the Minnesota Senate Tax Committee. Please introduce yourself for the record. You may
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Nelson, Vice Chair Coleman, Ranking Member Rest, and members of the committee. I am Chris Meyer and currently the Winona County Board Chair. And I'm here to ask for your support for Senate File 2833, which would authorize Winona County to hold a referendum by ordinance, a sales tax and use tax of 1/4% to finance up to $28 million to pay for the construction of a replacement jail, as well as associated costs for the bonds Winona County has issued. And I'll give you a brief history of the project. In September of 2018, the Minnesota Department of Corrections ordered that the Winona County Jail sunset, that is, to close on September 30th of 2021. Previously, inspections by the Department of Corrections had identified a long list of structural and operating deficiencies in the jail, which couldn't easily be corrected. And it was clear that remodeling the over 40-year-old facility, which was built to 1910 standards, wouldn't meet the needs of Winona County or the regulations of the DOC. Prior to that sunset directive, the county had taken some steps to evaluate its options. And in December of 2017, the county board created a jail advisory committee. After a year of study, that committee issued a report, and the county board approved the construction of a jail, which consists of the following features. The secure part of the facility, which is the inmate housing area, consists of 51 cell units with an 80-bed capacity, and that's divided into 8 separate units with flexibility in mind. 5 of those units have sub-day rooms, and that allows for up to 13 different classifications of inmates. So we have the flexibility that we have been lacking when we have bookings and need to reclassify inmates. The facility will have 6 holding cells in intake that could be used to house juveniles if necessary for a short time, and that would keep us from having to transport them around the state, which is what the county has to do now. 4 of the 8 units are considered special management or mental health units, and they'll be designed with correctional grade behavioral health furniture and fixtures and smaller bed counts, something that we're currently lacking. And there will also be a work release and Huber unit. The jail will also include the Sheriff's Department, jail administration offices, visitation rooms, secure court transfer, virtual meeting spaces for court counseling and visitations, offices for our jail intake worker, our jail social worker, and our treatment court coordinator. There'll be a medical unit, a kitchen, a laundry, gymnasium, classrooms, counseling rooms, and multipurpose rooms. We will have a larger and safer and more efficient booking area. And the project will also include a remodel for our upgrade of the 911 dispatch facilities. So there will now be space for programming like GED and job training, other education, and other types of counseling. Winona County has made a commitment to serve our community by investing in various programming for inmates, while understanding that jail isn't the last stop for educating inmates and treating the root cause of their behavior. The design is a model for repurposing our jail to meet 21st century communities' needs and providing efficient and effective spaces for our existing programs to serve the needs of individuals. Again, Winona County asks for your support and passage of Senate File 2833. I thank Senator Miller for sponsoring this legislation, and I thank you for all of your time today.
Thank you, Chair Meyer. Any further comments or questions, members? Senator Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Miller. And thank you to the testifier, Ms. Meyer. I just wanted to extend my appreciation of sort of the forward thinking about the design of this jail and taking us through it with it, particularly sort of the devoted units for mental health care. It's unfortunate that our correctional facilities have been burdened with that responsibility, and hopefully we can continue to make a better Minnesota where that becomes less so the case every year. But in the meantime, that's the situation, and I appreciate you being visionary about that. Ms. Meyer, I didn't hear you mention anything about sort of exercise or recreational facilities. Is that at all part of the plan?
Yes, there will be a gymnasium, something that we certainly haven't had in our current jail. Yeah.
Okay, any further comments or questions? The bill will be laid over, Senator Miller, would you like some final
Nothing
comments?
further. Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for your consideration.
The bill will be laid over.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Miller. Next on our agenda is Senator Ingebrigtsen, Senate File 4058. It looks like Senator Ingebrigtsen had to be in a couple places at once, so we'll go ahead to the next and then we'll come back to Senator Ingebrigtsen. All right, next on our agenda is Senator Johnson, Senate File 4017.
They both went to vote in finance. They'll be right back.
Okay.
I see Senator Eaton's here.
All right. We're just voting in finance. Well, we will, I think we're gonna move on then. Senator Bakk, we're gonna hop right to you. I know we've got a tight agenda today, and that is Senate File 3763. Senator Rest, could you move that bill for us, please?
Senator Bakk can move his own bill, but sure,
Of
I'll
course he
move it.
can.
Well, thank you,
Senator Bakk.
Madam Chair. The city of Proctor is a community that's in my district. For lack of a better word, it's a suburb of Duluth. They don't like to be described that way sometimes, but they have some real challenges, community with not a lot of tax base. The CN Railroad owns a large piece of property in their community, a big piece of the city's footprint, and we kind of don't tax railroads very much. So much of their tax capacity is pretty limited. They have a local option sales tax now, much like their neighboring communities of Duluth and Hermantown. They would like to impose an additional ½ cent. There is a trail, and many of you probably are familiar with it, called the Munger Trail that traverses from Hinckley up to just short of Duluth. What there is not a connection to is to get to the North Shore hiking trail, which starts on the upper side of Duluth and goes all the way up the North Shore. It's about 300 miles of hiking on the North Shore. There is not a connection from the Munger Trail, which is a significant state trail. So what this would do is build the Proctor piece to try and eventually get the Munger Trail connected to the North Shore Trail. So there's a couple missing links, and one of them is in Proctor. So the city came with a request for a local sales tax option to build that piece of trail in Proctor to eventually complete the link to get connected into Duluth and up to the North Shore. With that, Madam Chair, a longtime city councilor, Jake Benson, is here, and Madam Chair, I'm pleased that he came down. The timing wasn't the best for him to make a trip to the Capitol, but as this committee knows, I make few exceptions for people that if they got something in front of the tax committee, they should show up and put a face on it. So I want to thank him for coming down. And I think the city administrator, I did give a pass to them. I'm not sure they're on, but the city administrator is in quarantine right now. So I guess we probably wouldn't want the city administrator here. So we did make an exception for them. So with that, Madam Chair, my city councilor, Mr. Benson.
Thank you, Senator Bakk. Welcome, Councilor Benson. Introduce yourself for the record. You may begin.
Thank you. I am Proctor City Councilor Jake Benson. I'm a Proctor businessman. I also serve as an officer on the Proctor Chamber of Commerce. Chair Nelson, committee members, thank you for this opportunity to discuss 3763. And I also want to thank our author, Senator Bakk, for his support. Proctor's about 150 miles north of St. Paul on I-35 on Lake Superior's ridgeline, about 12 to 1,400 feet above the shore. We are also the entrance on I-35 to the Spirit Mountain Recreation Area. Our neighbor in Hermantown is also asking for a ½ % increase, in part so they could complete their portion of the Munger Trail Spur. Hermantown already has opened part of their trail, so we are in effect the missing link. The Willard Munger Trail Spur has been part of our master plan for 15 years. We've discussed it for nearly 3 decades, and we don't have that connection right now to this unique regional destination amenity. With voter approval, we can complete this missing link that will hook us up to that 70-mile trail between Duluth and Hinckley. The trail will be designed to be fully accessible. It will also connect to Spirit Mountain Recreation Area, the Duluth Lake Walk, and it's going to be very near the 300-mile Lake Superior hiking trail. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the support of our citizens and business community. They know our unique situation. In 2000, our 0.5% sales tax passed with a 77% voter approval. In 2017, it was approved in the high 60% range. Proctor's only 1 by 3 square miles, 3,100 people, but it gets much smaller when you take into all the land the government and the railroad owns. Some of the highest value land in Proctor pays no property taxes because 42.3% of all property is owned by 6 non-tax-paying governments. The railroad owns about 15.5% of land. We're bordered on 3 sides by 2 cities that already have a sales tax. And as a side note, if passed, this would be a lasting memorial to Proctor's friend and former state representative, Willard Munger. I thank you for your consideration, and I believe our city administrator, Jessica Rich, is on Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. And Ms. Rich, welcome to the Tax Committee. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jessica Rich, and I am the City Administrator for the City of Proctor. I'd just like to run some facts and figures by you. First of all, this is a 16-mile trail spur from the Munger Trail up through to Hermantown. Proctor's portion of it is approximately 6 miles. And if you can see the amount that we're requesting for, that's about $2.5 million per mile. And I would certainly ask the question, why so expensive? The reason why is because the Proctor's portion has to pass through several railroad crossings. We have to go do an interstate crossing. And also, Proctor is located right on the ridge line of Duluth and Hermantown. And so we have a very challenging terrain to overcome to make this trail connection. The additional sales tax, as Councilor Benson has been supported by the Proctor taxpayers in the past, and we believe so it will again this time. So we thank you for this opportunity to request it. All Proctor, Duluth, and Hermantown have master trail plans, and this would be a really unique opportunity to connect all 3 communities all the way as far south as Hinckley. So it is definitely a regional trail that the people of the state of Minnesota can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. Any further comments, members, questions? Well, Senator Bakk, we do know it's a beautiful area, and those connector trails are I think the most efficient kind of trails, because you're getting access to all those trails on either side. So if there's no further comments, we'll turn it over to Senator Bakk for final comments.
Well, Madam Chair, Proctor, for a period of time, had 2 members of the legislature. I was in the Senate representing them, and they had Mary Murphy representing them in the House. And also in the House from the Brainerd Lakes area was Representative John Ward. And many of you served with John. John was a former mayor of Hermantown. So when I had things that were important, or of Proctor, so when I had things that were important for Proctor, I always knew I could go to, in the House, I could go to more than just Mary, I could go to John Ward. And Proctor was pretty successful with John helping on things over in the House. Madam Chair, I appreciate the committee's consideration.
Thank you, Senator Bakk. The bill will be laid over. And Senator Bakk, if you could stay, and I believe you're going to present Senator Tomassoni's bill, which is Senate File 3742. And I understand Senator Tomassoni is online. We are so glad for that. And we'll go ahead and start with Senator Bakk. Would you like to start? Or would Senator Tomassoni like to begin?
I can start, Madam Chair.
Senator Bakk.
A year ago, in last year's tax bill, this committee and the conference committee authorized a local option sales tax for the city of Grand Rapids to make some renovations to their civic center. What they have learned is they've gone through the bidding process, all the design and the cost estimates is that the project's going to cost considerably more money than they thought it was going to cost. So this bill does not ask for any additional sales tax authority. It just asks for the amount of bonds that are going to be sold to be increased to cover the shortfall and to extend the term of the bonds from 7 years to 12 years so they can cover the additional the additional cost. But the project is the same, and the tax is the same. It's just gonna take longer to get the improvements paid for. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to tell you that the city of Grand Rapids is in attendance and would like to speak to the bill.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee. If you could introduce yourself for the record, please. Before you do, I'm going to have Senator Weber move the bill, Senate File 3742. Oh, Senator Bakk, did you move your bill? I don't think so.
Senate Files 3742.
Yes, thank you so much. And to your testimony. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Madam Chair, my name is Tom Pagel. I'm the city administrator for the city of Grand Rapids. Senator Bakk basically took the words out of my mouth on what I was going to present to you. This is a very exciting project. It is a major economic driver for the city of Grand Rapids, sustains our hotels throughout the winter, our hotels and resorts. But as Senator Bakk had mentioned, we've completed design and we've updated our opinions of cost, and we've seen substantial increases in construction costs. So want to thank you again for authorizing our ability to have the referendum, which will be held this November, and just asking for your authorization to increase the amount that we would be asking our residents to consider approving.
Thank you, Mr. Pagel. And how much is that? What type of a percentage increase are you seeking?
Well,
Mr. Pagel.
what we're requesting is to go from about 5.98 million, which is what we're currently authorized for, up to 10.6 million.
Okay. Thank you very much. Senator Rest.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the people voted on the one figure. They haven't voted.
Correct. They have not, correct.
Correct.
They have not voted. So the question is going to be for the 15 million, a 33% increase in the ask. Is that correct?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Pagel.
Senator Rest, we have not had a referendum yet. And so instead of asking our constituents, would they authorize 5.98 million, we would be asking them if they would authorize 10.6 million.
Okay, but
Well,
Senator Rest.
Madam Chair, Senator Rest, if it looks like
Senator
the
Bakk.
math doesn't work, it's because Senator Sendrum put $5 million in the most recent bonding bill for this regional civic center. So $5 million is state bonding.
thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Bakk, sir.
Any further comments or questions? Senator Bakk, any closing comments? And let's hear from Senator Tomassoni. Senator Tomassoni, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. The bill in front of you is a simple request to allow an already authorized tax to pay for a project that it is authorized for but needs to be extended to deal with higher costs. I think this is an easy one to authorize, and I would appreciate if it is included in the final bill. Thank you, Senator Bakk, for pinch hitting for me, and thanks, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you, Senator Tomassoni. It is good to hear from you. Seeing no further comments, the bill will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Senator Bakk. Thank you, Senator Tomassoni.
Madam Chair, I don't believe I
Senator
actually
Bakk.
moved Senate File 3763, the Proctor bill.
You did.
Did I? Okay, okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you so much. All right, members, next on our agenda is Senator Ingebrigtsen. Is he back yet from Finance? And Senator Johnson is not back from Finance either. So we'll move on then to our second page on the agenda. Just looking. Senator López Franzen has Senate File 2901. Senator Franzen, are you in the? I do not see you. Okay, I do see Senator Wickland. Come on up, Senate File 3393. And while she's coming, Senator Coleman, if you could move Senator Wickland's bill, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, so moved.
Thank you. Senator Wicklund, welcome to the Tax Committee. I'm glad you brought your testifiers with you. And to your bill, Senate File 3393.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate being able to present Senate File 3393 in the Tax Committee today. It is a bill brought to me by the City of Bloomington, and it is part of their process to go forward with a local sales tax and authorizing that, and this bill would take care of the state part of this process. I do have the testifiers here with me today, Mayor Tim Bussey and the city administrator, city manager, Jamie Verbugi, and they will go through in more detail with testimony. So,
Thank you, Senator Wicklund. Mayor Bussey, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record. You may begin.
Good morning, Senator Nelson, members of the committee. Thank you so very much for taking the time to hear us today. My name is Tim Bussey, and I have the honor and the privilege of serving as the mayor of the city of Bloomington. As Senator Wicklund said, we're bringing forward a request for a Bloomington sales tax of 0.5% to fund 3 regionally significant projects in the city of Bloomington. The projects include a significant renovation of the Bloomington Ice Garden, which includes a new roof for the facility and a complete replacement of the R22 refrigeration system. I'm sure in other city presentations, you've heard about the problems about refrigeration systems in ice gardens and ice rinks across the state of Minnesota. The fact that the R22 refrigerant is no longer available and is no longer legally available in the United States, that we have to look for alternatives to that. The second project is a new community health and wellness center. This would replace 2 existing facilities, our public health building and our Creekside Community Center. And the final project is an expansion of the Bloomington Center for the Arts, which includes a new concert performance space. We currently have a wonderful theater, which is attached to Bloomington Civic Plaza, but it's not well suited for orchestral or choral music. There are 3 points that I would like you to know about each of these 3 projects. First, all very clearly fit the definition of being regionally significant. Bloomington Ice Garden rents 9,000 ice hours and hosts more than 24 tournaments and figure skating events from across Minnesota, and they host skaters from across Minnesota and the United States. And I can't prove it, but I believe that anyone who has ever laced up skates in the state of Minnesota has at one time played at Bloomington Ice Garden. I think that is true now as it always has been. Secondly, Bloomington Public Health serves both Edina and Richfield, and during the pandemic, our public health department served thousands of individuals from outside their service area. And the arts groups that are housed in our Center for the Arts provide programming and have membership from 11 Minnesota counties, and we had that number from 2021, and our ticket base that bought tickets from artistry at different points during the course of 2019 literally was from across the United States. The second fact that I need you to understand is that the needs that we're addressing come from 2 main factors. Outdated and in some cases functionally obsolete facilities, as I explained with Bloomington Ice Garden, or programming and use that is so successful that these facilities are literally bursting at the seams with numbers of people who are involved. And finally, members, Bloomington has made significant strides in recent years in the creation of new affordable housing and the preservation of naturally occurring affordable housing. We're looking for alternative funding opportunities for these facilities so that we don't have to rely on property tax dollars, which it would impact the significant gains we've made in the area of affordable housing. We learned recently that Bloomington has reached 78% of our 2030 affordable housing goals as set by the Metropolitan Council. That's something that we're very proud of, and we're confident that we're going to reach 100% before the end of the decade, obviously. As with all of these proposals that you're hearing, we did hold a public hearing, and the proposals, the resolution passed on a 7-0 vote with the City Council. We received testimony from both sides, both for and against. I will say that the testimony in favor was overwhelming, and we've heard from a number of folks who are so excited about this possibility. And I look forward to the opportunity to bring this forward to the people of Bloomington in November for a full referendum and a full vote on these 3 projects.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. I heard your comments about affordable housing.
Yes.
I don't see any in this particular proposal. You're just giving us the history?
I'm giving the history and the fact that we're trying not to raise property taxes on these affordable housing, this naturally occurring affordable housing, which would then push it out of the naturally occurring affordable housing realm.
Thank
So we're
you.
trying to avoid that at all costs.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, we also have the city manager, Jamie Verbrugge.
Verbrugge.
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair
Introduce
and members. Not much additional to add beyond what the mayor said. He hit the high points. I would stress the point on being conscientious of the property taxpayers. These are projects that are serving a good number of people in the community. They're highly valued by not just the residents of our community, but people from across the region who utilize these facilities. And, you know, they're necessary parts of our community that need to be reinvested in. What the city council is trying to do is to minimize the property tax impact for residents for facilities that are serving a regional audience. And the analysis that we've done is that our property tax payers, if these projects are funded through our levy or through local bonding, would end up paying about 3 times as much to get these facilities constructed. And like I say, these are not necessarily wants. The public health facility is more than 60 years old and currently is housing more than twice as many staff as the building was designed for. Our current community center, which is primarily functioning as a senior center, is a building that's 62 years old. It's a converted elementary school building that is essentially functionally obsolete just because of the number of code changes that would need to be made if the building were improved of its own. And as the mayor said with the Ice Garden project, the R-22 refrigerant no longer being manufactured or allowed for importation into the United States means that there is an ever-declining supply, which means the cost is going to become prohibitive in the very near future. So changes to that facility, which also is 50 years old and in need of a new roof and new mechanical and significant improvement as well. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Verbrugge. Before we get to the questions, we have, I believe, 3 testifiers online. Here in person, wonderful. Let's get our testifiers, and then we'll call you gentlemen back up if there's questions we need you to answer. Okay, I see Julian Bergerson, Andrew Toole. If you two could come up, and then also we have David Clark, who will be on deck. Ms. Bergerson, welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record, please, and begin.
My name is Julene Bergerson. I am a more than 30-year resident of Bloomington. I have volunteered over 28 years of that time for the city and for the city of Bloomington as a neighborhood watch block captain. I can say that I have the pulse of my neighbors and some businesses right here. I'm here to give another perspective to what the city was saying. Mayor Bussey saying there's overwhelming support for this. I live on what is classified the working class side of Bloomington, the east side. I can tell you that on behalf of my neighbors, 2 of whom are widows, this sales tax is going to raise the price on non-negotiables, and that can be roofing, other building materials, major appliances, furnace AC, furniture, medical equipment. The city is estimating that there's going to be a $72 per year additional cost for residents if you pass this bill. I object to this estimate. Any major purchase I mentioned above, plus day-to-day purchases subject to sales tax, will put a family above that estimate. I would like clarification, maybe from the committee, on whether or not automobile purchases would be subject to this extra tax.
We will have Ms. Pollock get you an answer momentarily, so she will get you that answer. If you'll continue with your testimony,
Okay.
we'll come back
Yes,
to that
thank
question.
you. Yes. One widow is angry, actually furious, with the tone deafness of the mayor, council, and city manager. Recently, they passed an energy audit, and she is in the process of selling her home. She does not know if she will need to replace her furnace, blow an extra installation, replace windows, doors, or take a lesser price for her home. When the buyer sees what may be necessary. Also on our street, we have received a minimum $6,000 assessment for curbs and gutters. Minimum, that's the estimate. I'm watching the price of bitumen, oil-related. It's gone up at least 25% since January. On top of that, the cost of labor. We're thinking that it's not gonna stop at $6,000. The council passed that 7-0. The council also recently passed an ordinance or a fee of $5.50 a month, that's $65 a year, for organics recycling. Residents are not allowed to opt out of that. We must pay it, whether or not we participate. Let that sink in. Families are currently dealing with runaway inflation on food, gas prices, medical. I received a bill for $350 for a Zoom meeting on top of the charge for the visit. $650 for 20 minutes. Let that sink in. Just because our city representatives say these projects have regional value doesn't mean it's so. A concert hall is included in this ask. It's a nice to have, but considering everything our families are going through right now, employees have gone through in the past 2 years and are currently experiencing the negative effects of, that project really is a nice to have. 300 seats at $25 a ticket. You figure an event every weekend. That's takes 85 years to pay for, and they're not including financing and another cost. So we don't know actually what the actual cost is because there's two unknowns there. I'm not saying that a senior center, public health building, ice garden renovations are not necessary. I just feel they're city projects and we need fiscal responsibility. The city needs to look at reducing their expenses, like all of us have to do. We have to live within our budgets. So I don't believe that at least 3 of those meet regional value. And furthermore, why are the residents of Bloomington being asked to foot this additional tax at all? If it's regional, spread it out regionally. I also have a question on whether the city has done a cost-risk analysis as to how this will affect businesses. I'm going to read testimony that was emailed to me from a local business person, well-established, well-known, been in business for many years in Bloomington, and this is what he has to say. Dear Julene, thanks for taking the time to represent businesses that feel in addition to the current sales tax are too much of a burden to carry. We already fight daily with other dealerships as little as 10 miles away over the higher taxes that have been assessed by Hennepin County. When any of you shop for a big ticket item, a portion of your buying decision is made with price in mind, true or not. This incremental increase sounds like a small amount of money until you multiply it by our average sale of $50,000, okay, which leads to an additional tax of $250 over other municipalities in parent Scott County. Keep in mind, we are already paying an additional 1.02% over most counties already, and that's a Hennepin County tax. Based on our selling price, the Bloomington purchase would now be a total of $762.50 above other counties. I ask you, how many of you are not willing to drive 10 to 15 miles to save $762.50? And I also ask you, how many families are going to travel to another city to make major purchases when we're all being asked at the same time to think of sustainability and being green and not using our cars? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Andrew, oh, yes, Senator Weber.
Do we have answer to her
Oh,
question?
yes, before, yes, we do. Ms. Paula.
Madam Chair, Senator Weber, no, the local sales taxes under the general sales tax chapter here would not be applied to purchases of motor vehicles. They are taxed under a different chapter, and their tax structure is instead of or in lieu of the sales tax.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
Good question. Mr. Toole? Or are you Mr. Clark?
Mr. Clark, yeah.
Mr. Clark, welcome to the committee. And if we could also have Andrew Toole come up at this time as well. And then.
Andrew Toole's going to yield his time to me.
Okay, we have Mr. Clark. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much. My name is David Clark, 19-year resident of Bloomington. My family's lived in Minnesota for 150 years. We arrived around 1870, so we're very familiar and appreciative of the high quality of life in Minnesota and the cost that comes with that. But there are limits. Like everything, there are limits. And I'm here to categorically speak against this local option sales tax, and hundreds of residents in Bloomington feel the same way. And there's several reasons why. First of all, it's unfair. It's unfair because this body is holding $9.3 billion of surplus, which has not even been returned to the people yet. So why are we talking about further tax increases? That's just patently unfair that we're even having this discussion at this time. Secondly, it's regressive. It's regressive because the people in Bloomington who do not have the mobility, who are working 2 or 3 jobs, the lower income people, they can't escape Bloomington to go to another municipality and take advantage of lower taxes. I can. I can jump in my car and go to Eden Prairie or Shakopee or whatever other location has what I'm looking for, especially high ticket items, and I can save hundreds of dollars. Lower income people can't. It's very regressive and goes against the 7 pillars that the city purports to promote. There's no regional benefit here. There's certainly value to these projects. We need a new community center. We need a new senior center. We need a new public health building. The Bloomington Ice Garden does need repairs. But these aren't regional things that would go across the region and demand that Bloomington foot the bill for these assets. You should have a presentation in front of you. We're actually mapped out on the presentation, you know, the different areas that show what kinds of facilities exist in a radius of Bloomington. Let me just take one of them that is the golf course ask. The golf course ask, there's 85 golf courses within a 20-mile radius of Bloomington. Where's the regional benefit there? Community centers, there's 14 plus community centers in Bloomington. Bloomington's the only city where there's actually 2 Lifetime Fitnesses. There's a high school that was built in '95, Jefferson High School, that the community was promised that the community would have access to those facilities, and the community can't even access those facilities anymore, a mere 27 years later. When you come to orchestra and art centers, there's over 7 community and art centers within a 5 to 10 mile radius of Bloomington. Where's the regional value there? There's no regional benefit. Now, these things are nice to have. Bloomington can make a decision to have them, but there's no regional benefit. Just a couple final points, Madam Chair. This local option sales tax, it encourages overspending. If the city had to go and raise property taxes on the residents to pay for these things, you wouldn't see anywhere near $150 million. You'd see a lot lower costs to be able to invest in these things. So I'm against the local option sales tax, but what am I for? What am I proposing? Well, how about public-private partnerships? The YMCA just 3 years ago offered to come in and help build a community center and operate it, and they were turned down by the city for whatever reason. The YMCA, who's experts at programming and youth activities. You got Ebenezer, you got Presbyterian Homes. These people are experts at doing senior programming. Why aren't they part of the discussion? The other aspect that we're missing out on here is institutional giving. I went on the website to the Ordway, just a mile away from here, and they state all the institutional donors that help support that facility. Some giving up to $1 million each. And then there's the 250 category, and then there's the 100 category, and there's the 50,000 category. And you got all their names listed right there. Why isn't Bloomington going after, institutional giving? There's large family foundations, the McMillan Foundation, the 3M Foundation, the Schultz Foundation. Why aren't they going to those family offices and those institutional donors, the large corporate sponsors, and saying, hey, we'd like to establish a partnership with you to help pay for this facility? So it's unfair. Lost is regressive, there's no regional value, and it encourages overspending. What we should be focusing on is public-private partnerships, institutional giving, corporate sponsors, and much lower, more realistic price tag. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Are there any other comments or questions for the testifiers? Senator Rest.
Yeah, thank you. This is a question for the bill's author. Are any of these projects being suggested for the bonding bill?
Senator Wickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, currently I have a bill in for the Bloomington Public Health building, and then also for the ice garden.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Wickland. Not seeing any further comments. Senator Wickland, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just say that I do believe that the projects that have been discussed today do have a regional impact. I think that the city is moving through this process by gathering input from citizens and following the process to engage the city council. That has been done and previous to the hearing today. I think that going forward, that there is more work that will be ahead should this bill pass, and we are able to move the process forward, and the city council and the city manager will be working actively to engage the public to understand and move forward with the discussion about the ballot question. And that part of the process is, separate from what we're doing here today. So I do believe that the projects are worthwhile and should be considered, and I hope that you will consider this bill as you put together your final tax bill.
Thank you, Senator Wickland. The bill will be laid over. Next up is Senator Eaton, followed by Senator Isaacson. Senator Eaton, welcome to the Tax Committee. Senator Bakk, would you move Senate File 3502, please? Thank you. Senator Eaton, I see you have the A1 amendment. Senator Bakk, would you move that A1 amendment, please? Thank you. Members, is that in your packet? Yes, it is in our packets, members. That is the A1. This is the author's amendment. All those in favor of the author's amendment signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? All right, Senator Eaton, your bill has been amended. To your bill as amended, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for hearing Senate File 3203 for the City of Brooklyn Center. Madam Chair and members, this opportunity is appreciated. Senate File 3203 allows for a half-cent sales tax to assist with the financing of expanding and renovating the community center in Brooklyn Center that serves the North Metro region and indeed the entire state of Minnesota. If you allow us to bring this to our voters, the city of Brooklyn Center may be able to share the financing with citizens who do not reside in the city but are benefiting from the facility. It will also reduce the overall tax burden for Brooklyn Center's residents who, as you will hear, are already heavily burdened relative to ability. As a host community, the city of Brooklyn Center carries the overburden of regional facilities, but the city is financially disadvantaged. Brooklyn Center is one of 44 suburbs in Hennepin County and has the lowest average income. The ability to share the costs of these regional facilities with the non-residents who use our facilities is one of fairness. You have been provided additional materials in your packets. Madam Chair, if you would permit them, I would like to introduce my testifiers, Dr. Reggie Edwards, Brooklyn Center City Manager, and Meg Beckman, Brooklyn Center City Community Development Director.
Thank you, Senator Eaton. Dr. Edwards, welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record and begin, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Reggie Edwards. I'm the City Manager for the City of Brooklyn Center.
You may begin.
Again, thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak with you and committee members, and Honorable Senator Eaton for also having us here and allow us to speak to you about the funding of the significant community center in Brooklyn Center. Let me say Brooklyn Center is a community with a great deal of opportunity as well as need. The community has experienced significant disinvestment over the past several decades, which has resulted in the eroding of its tax base and made it virtually impossible for it to fund investments to meet the needs of a changing, dynamic community. As you consider the city's request on local option sales tax authority, I'd like you to keep in mind at least 3 points. One, Brooklyn Center is the most diverse community in the region with the 57% population people of color. It is only one of 3 cities in Minnesota that are minority majority communities, with a quarter of that population being foreign-born. Brooklyn Center, as Senator Eaton had mentioned, Brooklyn Center also has the lowest median income in the region, as well as the highest poverty rate within Hennepin County. Brooklyn Center residents, and number 3, Brooklyn Center residents pay 73% more per capita for the same services of residents from surrounding communities. So when you have a small population with a lower income and a very homogeneous tax base, then those property owners pay substantially more for, again, for a road being paved or any other the basic services in which are provided in other communities. So this issue is about economic resiliency and affects the entire region. Yet despite Brooklyn Center is rich in cultural diversity and resilient in entrepreneurial spirit, it is home to more small businesses per capita than any other suburb in the region and within Hennepin County. As we talk about a community, as we talk with community, we talk and ask community members as relates to what is it they want. And across the board, regardless of income, ethnicity, and background, people talk about wanting a sense of feeling of pride in the community and to celebrate its unique diversity. To have places to gather and to bring friends and family when they visit. Places to draw from outstate, and when I say outstate, I mean in the context of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Dakotas, not greater Minnesota. But nevertheless, when we pull folks from outside the state of Minnesota to events and dollars, that's something that's desired by our community. We believe that the project will bring not only economic benefit, but also a sense of community pride and to the region and to the city. Cities across the region and state are inextricably connected to one another, and economic resilient Brooklyn Center benefits the region and also the state. With that, I will turn over to our Community Development Director, Meg Beekman, who will speak to the project's some details, and then we'll both prepare to answer questions that you may have for us. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. Ms. Beckman, welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record, please, and begin.
Thank you. I'm Meg Beekman, the Community Development Director for the City of Brooklyn Center. Thank you, City Manager Edwards. Thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and Senator Eaton. We're really excited to share this opportunity from Brooklyn Center today with you. we're really talking about a regional project. The current Brooklyn Center Community Center serves 115,000 people per year. 65% of those are coming from outside the city to visit our facilities. Partly this is because of its central location. It has excellent access to major freeways and really central to the region. The city has an existing Olympic-sized pool, which is one of only 3 in the state. However, the facility constraints limit its use for regional and competitive activities. The community center is located across the street from our nationally recognized Heritage Center, Convention Center, and a few blocks away from Topgolf. While these assets and strategic location make the community center an excellent regional host site for those traveling for sporting events, conferences, and meetings, the facility was built in the 1950s. And so what that does is it really limits its ability to fully serve its potential as a regional asset. It's undersized, and as constructed, does not meet the needs of the community or the region. The city has done extensive community engagement and outreach. We've done market analysis over the last several years, and through that engagement and analysis, the need for recreational services and programming has been elevated in the community as a top priority. There exists a large gap between the needs of the region in terms of both swimming lanes as well as sport courts, and then the availability of those facilities in the North Metro. And we're really talking about what this equates to is out-of-state dollars that could be coming from Wisconsin, the Dakotas, and Iowa that Minnesota is missing out on in the form of events and tournaments that are going elsewhere. It was through conversations with our many community partners that the concept of an expanded community center that would focus on cultural wellness was born. The city engaged a consultant to complete a feasibility and market study, to engage with community, and to identify a fit plan and program for an expanded facility that meets the needs of a changing demographic, while also being able to serve the region with tournament and gathering space. The proposal before you was developed through a robust iterative process with community that focuses on right sizing within the physical constraints of the site, as well as the financial realities of our community. The future vision of the Brooklyn Center Community Center includes a plan to renovate and expand the existing facility to achieve 110,000 square foot modern space that will serve as a hub for community health, wellness, and recreation for Brooklyn Center and the surrounding region. This is not a project that the city could or should take on its own. As the highest taxed community in Hennepin County, and with residents with the lowest median incomes, the region stands to benefit from assisting with providing access to health and wellness to such an opportunistic community. A healthier, more prosperous Brooklyn Center benefits the entire region. This project is years in the making and truly encompasses the spirit of Brooklyn Center and the changing needs of our region. Thank you very much, and we'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Beekman. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Whichever one of the testifiers wants to answer this, they can. As we talk about your comments that, you know, with the financial, or should I say the lower income individuals that you have, the facilities that are there, and in your statement and in the prepared thing, you mentioned that the Olympic-sized pool is underutilized. And I assume that you're probably somewhat limited as to the charges you can place on use of that pool as a result of the general economy. My question basically is, what other type of facilities are within your general area? How are you going to attract people from these surrounding communities if there are facilities that are at least comparable in those facilities to make this a regional center?
Okay. Dr. Edwards.
Madam Chair, Senator, when we speak to the Olympic-sized pool, currently our pool that is underutilized because it doesn't have the depth and the number of lanes that it takes to facilitate regional competitions, and there aren't any facilities other than, again, University of Minnesota, as well as the in Rochester. Now, there are some facilities or some in surrounding communities that may have lanes that are Olympic size or 50 meters that are long. However, the facility itself, there are none that have a pool that can host a tournament that would have 8 lanes with the proper depth and with the proper temperature of water that is provided specifically for swim meets and for regional tournaments. So that is unique, and that does not exist to any great extent other than the two that I mentioned in the University of Minnesota and Rochester. And there is there's plenty of room within the market to be able to facilitate those type of tournaments. And we've also partnered with swim organizations, US Swim, that have helped us look at and analyze the market to identify that that is a need and there is a gap. And we're working with partners who will rent and utilize the facilities. As it relates to courts, that's also something that we know that there is a need for. If you do any type of regional tournaments within the metro or within the state, you would know that if you're hosting a basketball, volleyball tournaments, you typically are going between the high school and the gymnasium, and then you're going across town to the elementary that has a gymnasium, et cetera. And so we would be housing 4 courts, which we can develop, create 8 different courts of playing, so we can facilitate tournaments that are not currently that you're not able to facilitate in many other communities. So with that said, in essence, saying that the courts and the Olympic-sized pool and how we look to utilize those are something that is not readily available within the market. Although there are recreational swimming facilities, there are recreational courts, but not facilities that cater to tournaments.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick note, Dr. Edwards, in that discussion, and perhaps I misunderstood, but would it be that this newer, boy, we don't know what's happening upstairs, but we're certainly hearing it. Sounds like some cloggers, maybe. Anyway, so the question is, though, do you believe that this recreation, competitive, Olympic-sized pool for those larger competitions, do you think that would take away from where those competitions are now, like in our schools, for example? I think you mentioned that currently you might be accessing a high school pool or middle school pool, so I'm just curious if you think that would be the case.
Sure. In our conversation, Madam Chair, Madam Chair,
Dr. Edwards.
In our conversations with partners have actually requested, because they don't have access to the facilities that we're speaking of. So while there are competitions being held, there's a need, particularly on a competitive level, to compete in a competitive sized facility and to operate a tournament in a different way. So because there's limitations within the market for facilities that could accommodate such tournaments, there's an ask by the market to create opportunities. So the only facility that, again, would truly compete in this particular niche area would be the University of Minnesota, and they're booked out over years, and you can't get into those facilities because there's no other viable option within the state, within the region.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Senator Rest.
Thank you. I want to just support Dr. Edwards' comments about what's available in the surrounding area. I'm sure you know that New Hope has two lane, it's just 2 lanes in a water park.
Correct.
And it is used for minor tournaments or practice lanes, quite frankly, that are rented out for various facilities. And the Brooklyn Center project is really unique in making sure that there is truly a regional inviting facility for major aquatic events to occur competitively that need those 50-yard lane or 50-meter lanes, whichever one it is. I think this is a great project, and I hope that we can accommodate the sales tax to fund it that you're asking for. I don't know of anything that's been presented so far that is more regional than this project. And I thank Senator Eaton and the city manager for being here today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Senator.
And, you know, we really, it's really unfair to our testifiers to have this meeting disrupted by the dancers above us. And, Madam Chair, I hope that you would make a complaint to the
Senator
sergeant of
Rest,
ours.
I already have.
Thank you very much.
This is
It's
totally
it's
unacceptable.
ridiculous.
I apologize. It has taken a while to figure out that it's not construction, but that it is actual orchestrated noise-making that has exceeded really the limits of what should be happening in this building. So I do apologize.
Yeah,
We'll just
thank you,
have to
Madam Chair.
try
I
and
didn't hear that you had done that
Yes.
before, but it is, it's just not fair to the people who come here on very serious projects to have to talk through a celebration.
Yes.
You know, I'm nothing against celebrations, but
So, Senator
it's
Rest,
just not fair.
It's a good point. I would encourage other members to register your complaints as well. All right, thank you so much. Any further comments for Senator Eaton? Senator Bakk.
Well, Madam Chair, my question is for council. And I don't think, I'm having a hard time remembering I've seen this before, but I have to believe I have. And I notice it's in other bills that we have in front of us today. Council, on line 2.11 to 2.14, the bonds are not included in computing the debt limitation applicable to the city. Can you tell us what that means? I need an answer to that because I have a bill up for Senator Tomassoni tomorrow
Does the same thing.
in the Property Tax Committee for the city of Virginia, and I believe the mayor is coming down, so maybe I can get the answer to that before I present his bill. And what that really means.
Ms. Pollock.
Madam Chair, Senator Bakk, yes, this is standard language with the local sales tax authorization, and I believe it means that the bonds that might be used for these projects would not be counted in any other, or counted toward the limitation that may apply for other city projects, locally authorized projects that the city may decide to do on its own that would not need legislative approval.
Senator Bakk.
Well, I notice, Madam Chair, we see this less frequently than, most bills don't have this. And I'm kind of wondering how good an idea it is to let cities go way over their debt limit of what they should have in law. But I don't necessarily object, but I think we ought to be cautious of that. And then the council, the line 3, that the principal and interest are not subject to any levy limitation, what does that mean?
Ms. Pollock.
Madam Chair, Senator Bakk, I would have to confer with my co-counsel on that. I am not sure how that would apply to the local sales tax authorization levy limits.
Yeah, I'm guessing I have the same language in Tomassoni's bill tomorrow, so I kind of need to know that. I just kind of wonder if, I've always been a supporter of levy limits. Now, clearly there has to be some off-ramps for cities, especially for smaller cities, but to have some kind of limitations on how much property taxes can go up. Everyone's getting their valuations right now, and I've gotten an awful lot of emails about that subject. Doesn't mean their property taxes are gonna go up, it means their value went up, but in most cases, they're probably going up. But I'm just wondering if the legislature made a decision, maybe this will help with your research, council. If the legislature made a decision, and they will somewhere down the road, because we've done it more often than not, to put levy limits on, what language prevails in the event the legislature decides to put levy limits on? Is it the levy limits that we enact, or does this notwithstand a future levy limit that the legislature might impose?
Ms. Pollock.
Madam Chair, Senator Bakk, there's some general principles of statutory construction that say when a special law would prevail over a change in general law. I would have to check and see what those principles are in relation to whether a general law was passed subsequent to a separate law that would supersede, and might need to say specifically that this supersedes any other special law authorization.
Yeah, I'm just curious,
Senator Bakk.
because it appears we're trying to supersede anything a future legislature does, not I mean, I understand why, but I'm not sure it's all that good an idea. So just, I got the feeling this same language is in the Tomassoni bill I'm gonna present tomorrow. So that I don't get grilled by all of you what it means, maybe we can get an answer to it before I get to that point.
Senator Bakk, that's a good question, and we will be discussing certainly that bill as well as levy limits in general. And Ms. Pollock, if that would give you time to work through, I think what we need to know is what's the hierarchy of levy limits, and I think that would be important. So we will.
Madam Chair.
I think Ms. Pollock might have one more point to add today, and then we'll get back to this when we discuss levy limits. Ms. Pollock.
Madam Chair, Senator Bakk, I'm just hearing from Mr. Sylvia now that we've not withstood levy limits before, and we've allowed a city to levy outside of their levy limit.
Senator Bakk.
Well, Madam Chair, I remember back when I was tax chair, Governor Plenty and I did levy limits, several of the years that he was governor. And I remember one time, there were a number of off-ramps in there like that, where those things were outside of the levy cap. And the governor, after we passed the bill and everything, accused me of supporting levy limits that were Swiss cheese, that there were so many holes in it, it looked like the moon. But I suspect this was one of the places where we created an off-ramp for cities. So I just would suggest, if, Madam Chair, if we're thinking about levy limits, we need to consider these kind of things, I think, in the event the general law prevails over the special law.
Thank you, Senator Bakk. Insightful and timely, and we will speak more to that in our next meeting.
Madam
Further
Chair.
comments, I see Senator Rest.
Yeah, thank you. I have the same recall of, but they were not because of local sales tax items, but because we wanted to allow local governments to levy on property taxes outside, obviously, of the general levy limit. But we had gotten to the point where we had gone through the whole alphabet from A to Z, allowing an exception to the levy limits, and we were back to double letters. And that's when, as I recall, there was this big push of, wait a minute, let's let the local governments be responsible for themselves and accountable to their constituents. And so we got rid of them. Although, as Ms. Pollock points out, there are certain constraints that still exist relative to restrictions from the bonding authorities and so forth. But I think, I agree with you, Senator Bakk. I think that is something, particularly as we are now seeing the kinds of proposals that are bringing in revenue, millions and millions of dollars over a period of 20 years or more, that are going to bring revenues into a city that are not going to be accounted for under the property tax. And, we keep looking at the provisions of the local sales tax, and I have one here too later on, but we really do need a whole lot more scrutiny, and we've tried to bring that in the last couple of years, and we may or may not have been successful in the long run, but that's the world we live in right now, so thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, Senator Rest. The conversation will continue.
Madam
Senator
Chair,
Bakk.
to that, and I know cities and counties get pretty anxious when the legislature starts talking about levy limits, but my concern is the federal government infused billions of dollars into our cities and counties. We had cities that got over a couple $100 million from the federal government. Now that money is spent and gone. And what worries me is they have taken on some suspending that now they can't sustain. That maybe their taxpayers want to continue to have these, not being disrespectful, but some frills they didn't have before, the cities were able to provide because of all the federal money that poured in. And now how are they going to keep those things the taxpayers want sustainable without a significant spike in property taxes? So I think we all gotta be, I think, aware of that here in these final weeks of the session and kind of work through that. Because cities and counties were put in a very, very different situation with all this federal money that was rained down on them over
Yes.
the last couple of years.
Over 70 billion. We will continue the discussion. We do have several more. Jay has one thing, excuse me, Mr. Wilms has one thing to add of this timely discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Bakk, to his question related to line 2.11, related to the debt limitation, generally speaking, related to the debt and financing instruments available to, cities and local governments, there's a lot, but generally there's two, and that's general obligation and revenue bonds. And the difference, of course, is GO bonds are secured by the full faith and credit of the taxing authority, meaning that they have the ability to raise taxes to pay those off. However, revenue bonds, when they're issued, are secured by a revenue source. So what this language is essentially saying is that in computing the debt limitation, which is calculated based on those GO bonds, 3% of estimated market value, that's kind of a state-imposed protection for the taxpayer. These revenue bonds, which are secured by a revenue source, would not be factored into that debt limitation, which really governs the GO bonds.
Thank you, Mr. Wilms. And thank you for the good discussion, members. Senator Eaton, you got in on a big discussion, a little broader than your bill, but any final comments, Senator Eaton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just really appreciate consideration of this bill. It's important to Brooklyn Center.
Thank you. The bill will be laid over. Next on our agenda is Senate File 3794, Senator Isaacson, Roseville authorization to impose a local sales and use tax. I see you have two testifiers. Mr. Dan Rowe, the Roseville mayor, and John Kizelishan from Roseville. If all three of you could come up to the table, please.
Madam Chair.
Senator Isaacson.
They should be
to your
online.
bill.
Thank you. Mayor Rowe should be online,
Okay.
I believe. But I can introduce the bill if you'd like.
Yes, and then Mr. Kizelishan? Yes, please come up to the table.
Oh.
We're just running short on time.
Sorry.
So, all right, to your bill, Senator Chamberlain will move Senate File 3794. Senator Isaacson, to your bill.
Thank you. What this bill does is it institutes a 0.5% or 0.5% sales tax that would be there to support three projects. And the projects are a maintenance facility, a license and passport center, and a pedestrian and cycle bridge. The License and Passport Center has over 200,000 transactions, and 80% of them come from people who don't live in Roseville. The next closest license and passport place is quite a ways away, and so this one serves a far circle of the northern suburbs and right now it is woefully small. If you've ever been there, it's I mean, in COVID environment, it's completely not safe. It just looks like a little Office Max store, tiny little store in a strip mall, and it needs to be much bigger to facilitate all the work that they do there. The maintenance facility is used to maintain many of the regional recreational destinations we have in Roseville. We have lakes and parks that are used far and wide across the entire north suburban area. And then the cost of these projects will be paid, including interest and debt issuance costs, will be able to be paid over a 16-year period with this 0.5% sales tax. And I think, is the mayor?
Did you speak to the pedestrian bridge?
Oh, yeah, thank you. The pedestrian bridge connects the north and south side of 36 to the additional place to go, so you can go to the shopping center that is the Rosedale Mall, which is one of the major malls in the Northeast Metro as well.
Thank you, Senator Isaacson. To your testifier, Mayor Rowe, welcome to the committee. If you could introduce yourself for the record, please. I believe you're on Zoom today.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I hope you can hear me all right. And I'm very grateful for the ability to testify remotely. I just recently had surgery on a broken foot and my mobility is quite a bit limited. So as much as I would have loved to be there in person and know that that is looked well upon by members of the committee. This is just a whole lot easier logistically due to my limited mobility. So I appreciate that ability to testify remotely. Again, I'm Dan Rowe. I'm the mayor of Roseville, been mayor for about 12 years. This is, just to give you a little bit of background, Roseville is a major regional hub for retail and commercial activities in the Northeast Metro. We are fairly unique in that regard in the sense that we have a relatively small population in our community, but a significant retail and commercial presence. Just for sort of a numerical comparison, the figure is out there that Roseville has approximately 70 square feet of retail per capita. And our next nearest sort of competitor in that regard is down in the range of 50 or fewer square feet of retail per capita. So you can tell that we've got a lot of retail and commercial activity being supported by a fairly small residential tax base. And certainly we recognize the benefit to the community of the diversity of having that significant retail and commercial activity in our community. And certainly sometimes when people look at metro regional retail hubs seeking the local option sales tax, the question is, well, aren't you sort of on the gravy train to Easy Street by having all this retail? And the reality is, the flip side is that there are a certain significant costs associated with providing all of the services to the commercial activity. And like I mentioned, we're very glad and proud to have all of that activity in our community. It certainly diversifies our economic activity and keeps us as an engine of the economy for this area. But all of those costs associated with providing the services do add up. And while we certainly do have the commercial property tax to help pay for that, the reality is that we do share that with the state, and fiscal disparities enter into the equation as well. And so what we've got that we're looking at here is a project to build a replacement infrastructure maintenance facility on city-owned or largely city-owned property. So we're not required to acquire property for this project, but we have a facility right now that's probably about 60% of the capacity that's needed to adequately house the equipment and vehicles associated with maintaining our infrastructure in the city, which serves not only our 36,000 residents, but approximately that many people who come into the city to work every day. And actually about 40,000 people on average that or more that come into the city to shop, not to mention certainly the regional commuters on Interstate 35W and Highway 36 that are served as well by our public safety folks, as well as more tangentially the infrastructure maintenance on the city streets that see a lot of that traffic getting to and from our commercial establishments. And so the maintenance facility is regional in nature because we're supporting all of this activity from people coming into Roseville to do economic activity and using local streets, certainly using locally provided water and sewer and storm sewer facilities. And so that's kind of the major piece. As part of doing the project on the maintenance facility, we are in need of displacing our existing license and passport center to make that work from a logistics and staging point of view. And as was mentioned by Senator Isaacson, the License and Passport Center has about $200,000 transactions annually, about 80% of which are non-Roseville residents. I should also mention that just an example of our retail and commercial activity, I mentioned that average of 40,000 people per day coming into the community, for that retail activity. So that's, once again, most of those people are coming from outside of Roseville. And so we have a significant amount of the local option sales tax that would be paid by non-residents. And to that point, we have been hearing from our residents for many years about the sort of imbalance that they sense in terms of wanting to make sure that the retail and commercial activity adequately pays for the usage of the city resources and the cost of providing all of those resources for those folks that benefit. Certainly the local option sales tax limits what cities can do in that regard. We certainly can't impose a local option sales tax for paying for police officers or fire EMT folks, and we understand that. And so this is an effort to be responsive to our residents to help pay for those regional associated costs in a way that allows us to use our local property tax for those other costs that we understand are our local responsibility to pay for, even though they benefit people more widely regionally who are coming to Roseville to work and to shop. I would also mention in regard to the pedestrian bridge project, this is a major connection across Highway 36, which is a significant pedestrian barrier in the area of our retail and commercial hub. One side of the highway has Harmar Mall and a number of commercial activities related to that. On the north side, we have Rosedale Mall, and once again, a very significant commercial and retail activity there. Probably the biggest change we're seeing coming forward in that regard is the construction of more multifamily residential on each side of the highway, which residents would have to either go a half mile east or a half mile west before they have an opportunity to cross Highway 36 and make those connections. And so that's a significant barrier. And this pedestrian bridge is an opportunity to literally fill a gap there. And a key component of it, not only is it just to connect people to back and forth across Highway 36 related to the housing and retail there, but also getting north to County Road C along Snelling Avenue, we connect to a very major regional trail network, which provides bicycle commuters significant connections throughout the metro area. And so that's a very important connection to make. So those are our projects. As was noted, this is a 0.5% local sales tax over a 16-year period that would pay for the three identified projects. This would make our local sales tax very comparable to both Minneapolis and St. Paul, which both abut on the city of Roseville, and so we're right kind of in with our neighbors in that regard. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that folks on the committee might have, and I appreciate your time and once again your indulgence for remote testimony this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a comment and then a couple brief questions. One comment is regarding the commercial industrial taxpayers. I thought I heard you mention that there was concern amongst residents if the CI commercial industrial taxes are sufficient and for the needs that they create. And I would just be remiss if I did not note that that is the highest classification of taxation is commercial and industrial taxes. So I'm sure that your city will figure out all of those things, but just to know that CI is the highest classification of property taxes. I had a question on the pedestrian bridge. I did not understand how that is a regional of regional significance if it is to help residents from one side of 36 walk to the other side of 36, over 36, Highway 36. So how is that a regional significance, that pedestrian bridge?
Thank you for that question, Madam Chair, and I apologize. I kind of glossed over that a little bit at the end of my testimony, but the key is that it does actually connect along Snelling Avenue up to County Road C, which is a major east-west bicycle commuting corridor, and allows people on the south side of Highway 36 to make a connection to that actually can connect all the way into downtown Minneapolis as you head west on County Road C. There are also similar connections south of Highway 36 that can be connected to by that. And so that connection isn't merely just for the local residents. Certainly, one aspect of the regional nature of that is just the regional commercial hub that is in that area and making sure that it's all well connected together. But certainly, the key piece is that connection up to County Road C along Snelling, which then makes that east-west connection much more appropriate for those, especially bicycle commuters.
Thank you, Mayor. Is it connected then to a bike trail?
Correct. The County Road C has an east-west trail facility, which is definitely service bikes as well as pedestrians.
Madam Chair,
Thank you so much.
may I just speak to that for a second?
Yes, Senator Isaacson.
In our area in Northeast, we have two systems of trails that aren't connecting, and we're trying in various places along, especially along my district, to find ways to connect them, because it would go way north, way south, and obviously way to the west as well, that they are not currently connected, and that's just part of that connected process.
Thank you for that clarification. Members, any other questions for the mayor? Senator Dietz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not a question, it's just I will chime in to say that my district, there's like one district in between our districts, but I know a lot of people in my district that bike up there, and they do take that bike path coming from Minneapolis into St. Anthony Village and Brighton, Roseville. It is a major shopping center right there, so people do bike and, will stop either at Snelling or Lexington and get off and go shopping there, or we'll continue to bike to Stillwater or go, I don't know what direction that is, probably north to Lake Johanna. So it is a popular bike path and popular route. And I know of at least one person who was hit by a car right around that intersection area there because it kind of, you don't, unless you know that the path is there, it's not always readily visible. And so they, the biker had the green light and was going along, and the person didn't see them, and they got hit. It was a very serious accident. So I think this is it's a safety feature. It is a regional asset. It is, between Minneapolis and Stillwater, it's a major bike path to connect with all the bike paths up in Stillwater and along the way. So I do appreciate this and support this.
Thank you, Senator Dietzig, for that clarification, that explanation. I believe we are back to the pounding up above us. I apologize. I thought we perhaps had that taken care of. Let's get to your other testifier, Mr. Kiselishan. Welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is John Kiselishan. I am a 35-year resident of Roseville, and I also served as mayor from 2000 to 2004. I am here to speak against the city's proposal. Local sales tax is to be used for projects when a clear regional benefit can be demonstrated. In my opinion, Roseville's three proposals all fall well short of meeting this definition. A public works maintenance facility is hardly a regional project when every surrounding city has one. The voter-approved upgrades in 2002 are still adequate, in my opinion. The regional roads that were mentioned are owned by the state and the county, not by the city. The roads that were mentioned that surround the retail in our city are owned by the county and the state. Using taxpayer dollars to build a license bureau is troublesome when we have privately run operations paying their own way, like the one located a block west of the Capitol. Historically, Roseville's License Bureau has generated a profit. Adding community rooms to a license bureau hardly makes it a regional facility. Concerning the number of transactions Roseville processes, part of the reason why those numbers are high is due to them processing bulk dealer transactions from car dealerships in Roseville. A question was also raised about where the other license bureaus are located. Our neighboring cities of New Brighton, Maplewood, and St. Paul all have license bureaus. The final project is what I refer to as the pedestrian bridge to nowhere. It is a project for those too lazy to walk 2,500 feet to Fairview Avenue or Hamlin Avenue crossings at Highway 36. It's an addition to a grossly overpriced pathway system the city has built over the past 30 years that is used by hardly anyone. Most drive to parks and use the pathways in the park. Children in our area do not walk pathways to school, as the school district buses all elementary students to the front door. My children lived 1/2 of one city block from their elementary school. The school district drives them to my house. Instead of spending $16 million for what I would call a bridge to nowhere, the city could simply buy every potential user a new car, perhaps an electric bicycle, or something else for a fraction of the price. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Kiselishan. Any further comments for Senator Isaacson or either of his testifiers? Senator Isaacson, final comments.
Well, I'm going to stop short of calling people of Roseville lazy, and I would also say that if you understood what he was talking about and how far they had to walk, it wouldn't make any sense if you were trying to go to the mall to walk like that. That just doesn't follow reason. And in terms of the bike paths, it is hard to be on those paths and not have people around you almost all the time. Those paths are so important when we talk about how we get kids out and the things they're doing, regardless of whether the school bus picks them up. There are many other parts of the day in which children are using those paths on a regular basis. Roseville has such an amazing park system, and that connective tissue is so important. Finally, the footprint that comes from the retail center, as the mayor was talking about, is exceptionally important, and it's on both sides of 36, but there isn't a way to get across 36 in a safe way, as Senator Dezek acknowledged. And so I think that when you think about a regional center and you talk about the amount of people that use the Roseville DMV, that is so much more than people in Roseville. I mean, everybody I know who lives in my district and surrounding areas uses that DMV, and it's woefully inadequate, and it does provide a public service for a far greater space than just the people of Roseville. So I hope that you'll consider that to be what I think is a very worthy regional project, and I really appreciate you taking the time to hear my bill today, and I hope it is considered in the future. And in the future, if I can answer other questions, please let me know.
I thank you, Senator Isaacson. And just a note, for this bill and any other bills, of course, our role here in the Minnesota legislature, in the Senate, is to allow your voters the ability to vote
Correct.
on these issues. So
Correct.
we are saying that these projects meet the requirements in law, and then we turn it over to
Yes.
your community, every other community, to determine if the voters believe that they would like to see the local option sales taxes increase. So
Thank
the
you.
ultimate decision lies with your voters.
Excellent.
All right, your bill will be laid over.
Thank you.
Members, we've had to jump around a bit because we've had a couple of other committees as well. Senator Rest, as a member of the committee, we're going to save your bills till last. Next. Yeah. Okay. And then Senator Jasinski, Senate File 3708. While Senator Jasinski's coming, I will just give you an update. Obviously, I texted the Sergeant of Arms about 40 minutes ago. And just so you know, this lies with the Department of Administration, who issues permits. And they were notified. And whether or not they have been able to contain the issue will remain to be seen. But it is the Department of Administration, and our Sergeant of Arms did contact them. Senator Jasinski, Senate File 3708. Senator Chamberlain, could you move Senator Jasinski's bill, please?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Senator Jasinski, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate File 3708 is, I'm bringing forth by behalf of Rice County. Rice County is looking at building a public safety center. What this bill would do is give $77 million with a 3/8 cent sales tax over 30 years to fund the project. I will also note that I do have a bonding bill requesting as well, just in addition to this. But with that, I'll turn it over to my testifiers. I have a county administrator, and I believe my sheriff is online, so.
Correct. Ms. Falstead, welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Sarah Folstead, and I'm the County Administrator for Rice County. So I'll be able to provide an overview of our project and our request, and then our sheriff is joining us via Zoom to answer if there's any specific program or operational related questions. He'll be able to share about those. So our request is to be able to consider bringing a referendum forward to our voters up to $77 million in a 3/8 of a percent local option sales tax to fund the construction and debt service for bonds for our public safety center. So currently we have a 1972 jail as well as an annex location and an attached law enforcement center. And in 2019, Commissioner Schnell issued us a notice that we were going to be reduced to a 90-day classification. So following that notice, our county board passed approval for an RFP and a study to evaluate options to be able to either come into compliance or accept the reduction. We did issue a letter requesting an extension of that reclassification, and we did receive that, and that extension is going through this summer. And we're going to be requesting an additional extension as we continue through this process because we are demonstrating that we're meeting adequate progress towards the goals and requirements that were put in front of us. So during the study, the board looked at multiple options, including doing nothing and just doing kind of the deferred maintenance and boarding out of our inmates. We evaluated remodeling and expansion at our downtown location. We looked at remodeling and expansion at the annex location, and then we looked at a green site. And then through this process, we held a series of public meetings, both in person and on Zoom, given the pandemic, to try to encourage participation. And through the study, we found that the most expensive option was going to be expanding at our current downtown location. There's some nuances with the site that would make it difficult. And we have that old, 1970s, it's a 50-year-old jail style of the block, the linear style block that would make it very challenging to do what we need to do. So then we looked at actually, a decision was made to go to a green site. That was kind of a middle of the road cost. But the annex location that came in at the lowest has some limitations for future needs. There's a pipeline that goes through, so we'd be in kind of a predicament in the future if needs change. So they were able to secure land. And this location actually provides closer access to the I-35 corridor that actually divides our county. It runs right down the middle. It also will provide us direct access to the Cannon River for water rescues. Right now, we have to go drive quite a ways to be able to access the river to do anything for people recreating along that lines. Our current facility is a 68-bed facility. About 30% of inmates are out-of-county inmates. The new facility will be 76 beds, so we did a lot of care in the design that we weren't overbuilding, but also not being short-sighted, giving us flexibility to meet the classification needs, the new increasing needs with mental health and such as well. So in May, the board voted to go forward with that. We just did design development. We're at about just under 50 million, and the project is currently out for bids. And so our last estimate as well with the financing would put us at about a $70 million project once you have all the interest payments and such, but we know the interest rates are kind of moving. So we will cease collections. We're hoping not to cap at the 77 million, but be able to come in under that at around 70 million all in with the interest when this project is all said and completed. We're looking at a fall 2024 completion date, providing about 40 FTEs in the project, 166,400 employment hours in our region. So do you think, did I cover what I need to there? Okay,
Thank you, Ms. Falstead. I do have one question. I thought
Sure.
I heard you say 70 million. The request is for 77 million.
Correct.
Is there another project we're not aware of?
No, this is the only project. There's a little bit of a buffer because the interest rates are moving a little bit. So again, we're out for bids, and then as soon as we get those bids, we'll go out for bonding. So that gives us a little bit of flexibility, but we'll cease the collection early if we come in under more close to the 70 million. Another thing that I didn't share that I know you guys were interested in earlier as well is this new facility will it'll be our law enforcement, it'll be the jail, it'll host the local drug task force, drug and violent offender task force, as well as our social services. We created a new department for community-based care coordinators, which will serve, it doesn't matter if you're a Rice County resident coming in or a resident of somewhere else, you'll get the same service. So they'll do the mental health screening, connect people with services, and do some voluntary short-term case management following release in hopes that they get connected with resources so we don't have to see them joining us again.
Thank you very much. I believe you have another testifier online, Senator Jasinski, not listed on my sheet. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Jesse Thomas, I'm the Rice County Sheriff.
Welcome, Sheriff. You may continue.
So Sarah touched on, first of all, sorry I couldn't be there. We had a little bit of a heated board meeting with our redistricting, and I have a Derek graduation here later this morning, so apologize for that. Sarah touched on several items that I have, but one thing I want to emphasize is that the new Sheriff's Office will have a large training area that can be used for hosting regional trainings. So currently today, my chief deputy is at a training at our annex site, so he could not be at the board meeting. Having this type of training facility will allow the Sheriff's Office and our public safety partners to better train in both reality-based training, where our staff go through scenarios to better prepare themselves for endless possibilities they will encounter in CIT training, where they will work with educators to better prepare them for dealing with many mental health calls that continue to be reported to law enforcement, which is very a big topic right now for all of us. The new jail will offer a space that is more conducive to inmates' mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Housing units will allow for natural light and access to amenities while providing the safety and well-being of those in acute mental health crisis or withdrawal. We'll have a mental health specific unit with a softer and quieter atmosphere with natural light. This is a temporary fix for now, and this will be. And then when we look at our jail population, you know, I compare where people actually live, right? So we find roughly a third of our detainees do not actually live in Rice County. There are people who decide to come to Rice County and commit crimes. Due to the hard work of the men and women in law enforcement, they're arrested. Now means that they receive a sentence, hopefully, of less than a year, and they get to spend time in our jail. So when we look at sales tax option to help pay for a facility, it makes sense because Rice County residents aren't the only ones using our facility, and it spreads our costs among everyone who comes to Rice County for one reason or another. And that's all I have for today. Any questions?
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you for your public service. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any further comments or questions, members, for Senator Jasinski or his testifiers?
Just one.
Senator Chamberlain.
Just a quick general one, Madam Chair. So these projects in general, I think obviously the real easily supportable ones are those of critical, that are essential to the community, right? Public safety, roads, bridges, or projects of the sort. You know, second on our list could be the regional stuff, you know, trails that a lot of people could use, but these sorts of projects, I think Senator Ress has one coming up for similar stuff, public works facilities and public safety facilities, corrections, that seems to me to be an essential focus of what the government's supposed to do and what we should provide for our communities. If we're gonna allow these communities to take on these financial risk and this debt, it should be at least for critical issues and essential projects, for example, this facility. So just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. And our job is to make sure that the projects do meet our state definition, and then it will be up to the voters in each and every local entity to determine if the projects are of value to them. And just to note, you might not have this number today, but this is, I think, the second time there was a question about, well, how many of these projects, how many times have we had to bail out cities because they've not been able to get their local option sales taxes, they've had to default on the bonds. And that would be something important for us to know as we go forward. I'm not aware of any, but that there could be. So that'd be something important for us to know as well. Senator Jasinski, any closing comments?
No, thank you, Madam Chair, for considering Senate File 3708. As I also mentioned, we are looking at bonding as well, and I believe there's 5 other projects in the state that are looking at these type of facilities that I think are all also up for bonding. But Senate File 3708 would give a much more level tax versus taxing our citizens, our farmers and things like that. So appreciate your support, and we'll look to see what happens in Rice County for this upcoming election.
Thank you, Senator Jasinski. Your bill has been laid over for possible inclusion. Members, we're going back to, on our agenda earlier, Senator Ingebrigtsen. We've tried to get you up here a couple times. You're a busy man. We're glad you're back. So Senator Ingebrigtsen, you have Senate File 4058. Senator Dietzig, could you move that bill, please? Thank you, Senator Dietzig. To your bill.
Thank you,
Senator
Madam Chair,
Ingebrigtsen.
members. Thank you for allowing me to come before this very esteemed group of legislators here. The acoustics in the background has always been kind of nice too, actually, keeps everybody going. This is a bill that has been already, the way I understand it, has been heard. And the mayor from Fergus Falls is here to explain the process that they've been going through or about to go through. There's a, as you can see on the bottom of the bill, line 122, due to the cost of these projects obviously going up, and I'm sure you've heard that several times in your committee. But I'll turn it over to Mayor Shire from Fergus Falls, if I might, Madam Chair, for a description of what really we're here for today.
Mayor Shire, welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record and begin, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Thanks for the opportunity to be before the committee this morning. And thanks, as the Senator mentioned, for authorizing the local option sales tax last session in 2021 for the local option sales tax for Fergus Falls, for the Aquatic Center, and for the improvements to D Lagoon Park. Here before you this morning to just ask for, to amend the amount we're going before the voters with from $7.8 to $9.9 million. Same project, same design, it's simply reflecting the increase in costs that we've seen. So with that, it's pretty simple, straightforward. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So the request has not yet gone to the voters. You would like to amend the amount prior to going to the voters?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Any further comments, members, or questions for Senator Ingebrigtsen?
Just briefly.
Senator Chamberlain?
That was the best testimony all day. Thanks.
All right. Sometimes it's good to be last. All right. Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Any closing comments, Senator Ingebrigtsen?
No, thank you very much for your indulgence, and the cost of everything is going up, as you well know, so this is what, and again, the voters there will be taking care of the issue one way or the other come November, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. Your bill is laid over for possible inclusion. Next on our agendas, we're backing up to those who were not here earlier. Senator Johnson, Senate File 4017. Nice to see you back.
Good morning. Good to be back on our weekly visit over here to see you. So Senate File 4017. So the local sales.
Senator Coleman, could you please move that, Senate File 4017? Thank you. Senator Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. So the Senate File 4017 is an extension of a bill that we passed back in 2021 that allowed for the city of Warren to, it's a pretty unique funding situation where they're looking for solutions to their childcare situation up there. We've all been strapped in our communities for that, and they've come up with a unique way of addressing that. However, after the bids came in, they realized that inflation has taken a big chunk out of what they initially had proposed to do this. So what this is simply an expansion of that earlier bill that we passed. Instead of 1.6 million, this is going up to 2.8 million, and the duration of it would be extended out 35 years instead of 20. With me, I have Shannon Mortensen, who will be able to explain a little bit more on this if we could.
Ms. Mortensen, welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record, please.
Shannon Mortensen, City Administrator from the City of Warren. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm speaking today on behalf of Senate File 4017, which is authorizing a modification to the local sales tax authorized. Thank you, Senator Johnson, for authoring this. Last year, Warren was authorized to impose a $1.6 million sales tax collection to build a child care facility. But on February 17th, 2022, when bids were open to construct the facility, the price was $1 million more than the architect estimate, which was done in 2020. The local sales tax will be up for a vote in November, and we're asking to increase the collections to $2.8 million to cover the increased construction costs and also extend the collection period to 35 years. Warren appreciates the support on this modification to help increase childcare availability in Northwest Minnesota. Thank you, and I'll address any questions.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have just one question. Certainly understand the need for the inflationary increase, but my question is, so it has to do with the years of increase. So you're increasing from 20 years to 35 years to collect the correct amount of sales taxes, and that's a 75% increase in time. In other words, you're increasing the length of the sales tax by 75%. And that just causes me a lot of questions. Is there enough revenues for this under the current authorization? I mean, Senator Johnson, can you, or maybe your testifier could explain a little bit how the length to correct the needed amount, even though I know inflation has been incredibly high, but I don't know that it's been 75% higher. So how did you get to this number that it's going to take an additional 15 years on top of the 20 years that was approved last year to pay for the inflation?
Madam Chair, I will turn that over to Ms. Mortensen.
Ms. Mortensen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was based on our revenues being 60,000 a year. So to reach that 2.8 million, we would have to go up to 35 years to reach that, or to collect, I should say.
So were the revenues sufficient for the original request then to get to the 1.6 million in 20 years?
Yes, they were sufficient.
Okay, we'll have to do some noodling on this at this point. Senator Rust.
Thank you. Is it common for bonds to be let for 35 years? I thought the usual periods are 20 and 30. And then, all of these requests that we're getting are, have an escape clause kind of thing that they can keep the sales tax going far beyond the period of paying for the facility or for the project itself. They only have to, they can cut it off with a permissive ordinance, but, and this is not Senator Johnson's project in particular. I mean, I've noticed them on all of these bills, including the one I have, of they can collect the sales tax for 20 years or as long as they want, it looks like to me. Let's say the bond is 20 years, but they get enough money in 15, they can keep on collecting the sales tax. And I'm getting, I thought before we had said one or the other, whichever is sooner, and I guess we've changed that, or I remember incorrectly, but seems like to me that there's a cautionary note there somewhere, and 35 years is a really long term, even for a smaller community. I'm not questioning the need, a smaller community like Warren, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Rust. I'm going to ask Ms. Pollock to address that concern.
Thank you.
Ms. Pollock.
Madam Chair, Senator Rust, as you'll note, excuse me, and subdivision 4 of the bill that starts on 2.14, the tax expires at the earlier of 35, or as proposed in this bill, 35 years, or when the amount sufficient has been raised. So the earlier of those two. So if it's before that 35-year period, then the tax would have to be turned off. And then that is also required under the general law too.
Okay, so we do have, Madam Chair, we still do have that, that either or, and the city can cut it off even sooner. Is that the part of it? There's this.
Senator Pollock. Senator
A
Pollock.
hard stop.
How about Ms. Pollock?
But then a more,
No
then
harm
a
intended there.
permissive stop.
Madam Chair, Senator Rest, yes, I should have mentioned
Okay,
that too.
okay,
So
I'm sorry,
the
I was-
language
I was
says
misunderstanding the general law.
the tax must terminate at the earlier of
Yes,
that period of
okay.
time, or when the project has been paid off, or the city can terminate at an earlier time by ordinance if it so chooses.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. Senator Chamberlain.
Yeah, just quickly, Madam Chair. Ms. Mortensen, this is all inflation, what, almost, not quite doubled, but it's all inflation, there's no design changes to that?
There is no design changes and there wasn't anything we could cut. It was pretty conservative to begin with. The USDA rep that was on the bidding call with us, she said that's what they're seeing for their community facilities projects throughout the state, is that high of increase.
All right,
Senator Chamberlain.
thank you.
And then Mr. Wilms is going to also address the 35-year maturity on the bond.
Madam Chair and committee members, there are some considerations in terms of the maturity schedule as it relates to bonds. And typically, what we see is that the number of the years the bonds are outstanding should match the useful life of the capital project being considered. However, under a more conservative framework, generally the consideration is that 50% of the debt should be retired within 10 years. So typically, I think what we see is 20-year projects, but for any number of, longer-term projects, as long as those bonds can be issued and on the market, longer term can be provided.
Madam Chair, just
Thank
one
you.
last quick
Thank
comment,
you,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Wilms. Senator Chamberlain.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was the other kind of a thought. If this takes 35 years to pay off, that building might not be usable in 20. And that's the whole idea behind, right, behind accounting and matching the depreciation, right? I know some real property, I think real property, I'm kind of fuzzy on it, maybe Senator Rest knows, it's about 30 or 35 years, but these facilities that they put up today, there's major redos within 10. Now, I'm not complaining about your project, I think these are worthy projects, but especially for this, but this is what we're talking about and why we restructured a couple of years ago, why we're so careful with TIFs. We have a responsibility in this committee, not to you, Senator Johnson, this is in general, and not to your project, to be aware of that, no matter whose project it is. I know we've been bipartisan on this in the past. This is not a partisan issue. It can't be a partisan issue because there's just too much at stake. So that's just my general comment. Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, this wasn't towards Senator Johnson's project or Ms. Mortensen. Similar to Senator Bakk's discussion earlier, wasn't kind of wrapped up. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. And as a reminder, our job is to determine what fits within our statutes and what does not, and it'll be up to the voters in each locality to determine if they choose to increase the local option sales tax or extend it in many cases. All right, Senator Johnson, any further comments?
Just thank you for the time today and the discussion. I think we do need to look a little bit closer at the duration and some of those things are lining up. I know that was a question that a number of folks have had, but at this point, if it matches up with the statute, that's the important thing. And so thank you for vetting that today.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Your bill is laid over for possible inclusion. Members, before we get to our fellow tax members' bills, we have one additional here, which is Senator López Franzen. And Senator Klein, if you could move Senate File 2901, please.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Franzen, thank you for your patience. It's been a long day here in the tax committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're
Thank
glad
you
to
for
have you.
yours. We were jointly on finance hearing the mental health bill, so we were all busy working.
To your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members, for hearing Senate File 2901. It's an Edina local option sales tax to fund the Braemar project. And it's the city is asking the legislature for $31.7 million to support the Braemar Arena expansion. And to remind folks, in the 2021 session, the legislature authorized the city of Edina to conduct a local referendum asking Edina voters to decide the fate of 0.5% local option sales tax to fund local park and recreation facility improvements that serve the wider regional audience. And during that time, in the 2021 session, the committee authorized that lost tax to fund the Braemar Park Master Plan and the Braemar Arena infrastructure improvements. This new request of $31.7 million will fund the Braemar Arena expansion, and I have one testifier, the Edina City Manager, Scott Neal. for details or answer any questions. And then you should have in your packets a handout with the explanation of the project.
We do. Thank you, Senator López Franzen. City Manager Neal, welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you,
please.
Madam Chair. My name is Scott Neal. I'm the city manager in Edina. As Senator Franzen outlined, when we were here last year, we received support from the legislature for a $39.3 million referendum for Edina residents to decide the fate of a couple of large-scale park projects for us. While we were here asking for your support then, a group of residents and hockey boosters in our community were also working on a project to expand the ice arena itself, expand Braemar Arena. They were a little out of sync with the city and the legislature's timeline concerning last year's bill, so we weren't able to propose that bill as part of the part of the process last year. That's why we're here this year making this application to you. We are not proposing to increase the rate of the tax. We are not proposing to increase the duration of the tax. So 0.5% for 19 years. What we are proposing is simply to allow the city to capture a greater proportion of the anticipated collections of the local option sales tax in Edina for this specific purpose. And I'd be happy to answer questions that you have.
Thank you. And just for clarification, this has not gone to the voters yet.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's correct. It's scheduled to go to the voters this fall.
And one of the things we require before these projects come to the legislature, of course, is that they have a resolution from the city. Has the city of Edina passed a resolution for adding this additional project and extending the sales tax?
Yes, Madam Chair, they have. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Any further comments? Senator Rest. When did they pass the resolution for this additional item?
Madam Chair, Senator Rest, before the statutory deadline, I believe it was in January, if I remember right.
We have Ms. Pollock looking to make sure we got that information. I believe we did. So we'll come back to you, Ms. Pollock, when you have that exact date. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, Senator López Franzen, that was on January 19th that the City Council passed a resolution to increase the local option sales tax to include funding for this project. So, Senator López Franzen, any final comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members, for your time. I know you've been had a long hearing, and we have session right now, so I just want to say thank you for hearing this bill and just reiterate the significance of this particular project for the region and for the state of hockey. This is a facility that a lot of members of all over the state use, and actually folks from out of town and out of the state. So we welcome your support to make this the best regional asset for all of us to enjoy for future. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator López Franzen. Your bill has been laid over for possible inclusion. Senator Rest, I know we're getting ready for session, but you have two bills that you would like to have heard today. You're on the agenda. Do you believe you can do this now? Yes. Let's do this. We'll start, usually Senate session doesn't start right away. Let's take one of these bills right now, Senator Rest. All right? All right.
We can start talking about it now.
Yes, we have Senate File 3553, which is Senator Rest's bill, Golden Valley imposition of a local sales and use tax. And Senator Rest does have an A2 amendment to that, so I want to make sure members, you have that in your packet.
We have a new amendment.
We have a new amendment, which is not the A2. Let's get that passed out, members. That is the A3.
To A3, it is a delete all amendment, Madam
Senator
Chair.
Rest, do you have a copy of the amendment?
I think so.
All right.
What the A3 amendment does is to respect and acknowledge the work that has been done in the other body on this project. It removes the fire station project from the local sales tax proposal. The fire station project is a request to the bonding committee. And it also reduces the cost for the public works facility and the public safety facility. This is an area in Golden Valley that is extremely compact and congested. And the city is looking forward to a kind of a different configuration of the land that's going to be used that would be more efficient, less congested for the what is considered Golden Valley's downtown. And it seems to me that it's been a lot of discussion has come forward. I take responsibility for not having the delete all amendment before you earlier. There was some communication that I should have responded to earlier and was not able to or just did not. But it does reflect the work that was done in the other body, and it's a delete all amendment, it's an author's amendment, and I offered it to you.
Thank you, Senator Rest. All in favor of the author's amendment, the A3, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
And Madam Chair, that, otherwise, I think it's pretty straightforward and meets the guidelines. And I don't have any, we can ask questions of the city, but I don't have any further testimony to offer at this time.
Thank you, Senator Rest. Very clear explanation. It also appears, as you said, that the amount for both the public works facility and the public safety facility have been reduced from your original request.
That's correct.
Thank you, Senator Rest. All right, any further comments?
Just a quick clarification, Madam Chair. So there's only two projects, Senator Rest, and
That's correct.
that'll be about 73 million then? Oh,
Madam
thanks.
Chair, Senator Chamberlain, that's correct.
Rest.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All those in favor of the Senate File 35, I lost the number here, as amended, I got to get the number here.
3553.
3553 as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Your bill will be laid over for possible inclusion, Senator Rest. And finally, we have Senate File 3191. Senator Rest, would you like to move your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. And this bill is.
Will you move your bill, please?
Yes, I move the bill, and
Thank you
very much. And this bill is probably more important than some of the others, maybe all of the others that we have seen and that we acted on last year, because it clears up confusion about when the election, when the referendum must be conducted. And there have been a number of cities re-looking at the changes that we made that were very, very uneasy about what the term general election means. And so this bill clarifies that. You see a support letter from Gary Carlson in the League of Cities explaining the confusion that occurred and their activity. They're reaching out to nonpartisan attorneys to help them also understand the what we did in that statute and why it is ambiguous and why it needs to a clarification, and that comes in a couple of places, but the in particular, looking at section, what is it here? In section 2, and the and section, there's some clarifying language in sections 1 and 2, but the election date is in section 3, and there are communities right now that are waiting to receive assurances that when they put the vote when they put the question to the voters, that the word general election is defined. And that's essentially what it does. Mr. Carlson is still here. If you would like to ask him more questions, either today or later, particularly relative to the letter that he has provided on behalf of the league, and I believe other city organizations also support this change.
Senator Rust, I just have one question there in section 2, subdivision 2, lines 2.21, that new language down through 2.25. And my question is, I'm just scanning this, is that if we were to pass this into statute, into law, that the resolution and the day that it goes to the voters must be of the same year, is that correct? So in other words, I think I'm hoping I'm misunderstanding that. We have a number of entities that passed sales tax legislation in 2021, but it's not going to the voters until 2022. So I'm wondering if Ms. Pollock could speak to those few lines.
I would appreciate this. Again, this is really trying to offer assurances to cities that have otherwise met the qualifications and been approved by the legislature, that they do not run afoul, if you will, of what the amounts are, what the resolution is, what the date is, and how they can spend the money. So, but Ms. Pollock, if you would also give your assurances on that, that'd be
Ms. Pollock.
appreciated.
Madam Chair, Senator Rest, the language on 2.21 to 2.25 is clarifying and specifying that the resolution requirement is applicable for local governments that are seeking authorization to impose a new local sales tax, and if they're seeking to modify an existing local sales tax, that the resolution requirement that it be submitted by January 31st of each year, that the new sales tax or the modification would be proposed. So that the language there is only pertaining to the resolution requirement.
Thank you.
The language that Senator Rest was referencing regarding the timing of the election is on starting on page 4, 4.2 and 4.3. So the current language states that the election, the questions to the voters must be conducted at a general election. And there are some jurisdictions where a general election is held in an odd year. We think of general elections, statewide, so forth, elections being held in an even year, but there are a number of local jurisdictions that have their city general election in an odd year. So this is just clarifying that the election that's held, the election must be held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, which is when an election is usually held.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Any further comments? Senator Chamberlain?
I guess that would be my only concern. One of the problems we've had with some of these, not only here, but other issues, is in the even years, the general election was meant to be the even year election. I know that definition might be a little different, but the idea is maximum voter turnout. In the odd years, you don't get that turnout. So I don't like the language that is like this. I like language that is in even years when you have maximum turnout, either presidential or the midterm times, because then you have more people paying attention and going to the polls. If you don't do it that way, you're not going to have a fair representation, I fear, from the public. So if we could change that language, I agree with your changes here, but if we could change that language somehow before this goes to a final vote, I would support changing that to an even year somehow. But we had to reconcile that, right, to get it in timing with when they do the resolution and all that other stuff. We don't want them to wait 2 years, but I think it's got to be even year. I can't. Can we do that? Would you be opposed to even year if we can work it out?
Senator Rest.
Madam Chair, Senator Chamberlain, a couple of reactions. One is there are a number of cities that have off-year, we would call them, or odd-year elections for their city councils. And one of my cities, Golden Valley, is one of them. These are not uncontested elections. There's heavy voter turnout, and I would be reluctant to say, well, you've got to wait to the general election when the legislature's on there, or the governor, or the president, in terms of the interest of voters in those cities. And, but I certainly would, welcome comment, maybe not now, but before we do stuff, officially, really having a conversation with the city organizations to see what their reaction to it would be. And we know, on the other hand, in the past, that school referenda were allowed to be conducted at other than a, quote, general election period. We changed that for operating referenda, but allowed a school district, when it was a bond issue for a building, to offer it when it was convenient, timely, and so on. So there are exceptions to, even to having a general election for certain questions being put on the ballot that are not elections of officials. But I'm certainly willing to continue that discussion with you and others, and with representatives from the cities. I don't think it usually comes up for counties, but certainly it does. I don't know that there are any county elections that are conducted in an odd year, but certainly there are a number of cities that do that. And Minneapolis, Golden Valley, my city, one of my cities comes to mind, and maybe other members have that
Thank you.
concern
Yeah,
too.
thank you, Madam
Senator
Chair.
Rest,
Thank you, Senator
Chamberlain.
Rest. Yeah,
The
thank
one
you.
thing I would add, I agree with wanting to have as much voter participation as possible in these decisions. The other consideration is, however, if in fact the local option sales tax referendum is at the same time that there is a city election, you can very well imagine that that would be part of the election process, whether or not the city council members on the ballot support or do not support the referendum. So I actually don't see this as a problem, and I would be quite concerned if we had one city council pass a referendum, or pass a resolution for a referendum, then there's an election and you have a whole different city council there. So I agree with the premise about full transparency and engaging the voters, but I actually think the voters would be even more engaged in their city council election, knowing that those city council members on the ballot at the same time as the referendum would have to either be in favor or not, most likely.
And
Senator
Madam
Rest.
Chair, I think we've seen an example today in hearing from cities who got authorization, and then they're coming back today asking for an increase in the amount that they're going to put before the voters. And I would submit, Senator Chamberlain, that we might see that occur even more frequently if we do not allow that to occur, that vote to occur as soon as possible, as requested by the cities.
Thank you, Senator Rest. We are needed on the floor. This bill, Senate File 3191, is laid over for possible inclusion. Our next committee meeting is Thursday, April 28th. Thank you. We are adjourned.